right, welcome on in to another episode of DCU Daily on Oh So Curious. It's gonna be a fun show. I'm rolling solo today. We got a lot to get into. James Gunn giving us a few more updates. Maybe not the ones we wanted to hear about the Maxima character, or is it Maxima that he's casting for Man of Tomorrow? We'll talk about that. And of course, we gotta get into the Punisher trailer that came out today. There's a new Mortal Kombat 2 trailer that just keeps getting me more and more hyped for that movie. And of course, you know, we gotta get into all the quick hits. We're gonna be talking a little bit about the box office. I mean, The Devil Wears Prada 2, we now have our early projections for the box office opening weekend for that movie, and so much more. And of course, if you have been waiting in the live chat for us to go live, I apologize. We were having some issues. I was trying to figure out like what's going on with the streaming software, and it just wasn't working. But you know, we figured it out, so I'm glad that I'm able to do the show tonight, and I'm glad that you're all watching us, whether you're live or you're watching us after the fact. Let's get into the news, and then, you know, we'll get the show started.
It doesn't seem to matter what I do. I'm always the number two.
All right, mister, I need to paint my abs on to get nominated. You don't see Robert Downey doing that.
You're kidding.
You're
kidding. I can't open the envelope without the...
Warner Brothers is heading back into the Matrix with a new movie in the works.
Wonder what other surprises are in store.
I want to be Bruce Wayne. I like that. You're gonna love me.
There's the shot right there. That.
Okay, we don't need to see chords.
Right there.
You look ridiculous.
Well, not no more, he don't.
What, dude? I can barely understand you. Your accent's insane.
What the needs now?
Give me a hand up. Nope, I'm actually okay. Thank you very much. Oh, wow. Wow.
All right, I left the music on. Let me fix that. Sometimes we do that. But anyway, welcome on to the show. Again, sorry if you are watching live. I know you probably had to wait for a long time because I was trying to figure out some technical issues. Usually I'm good with the technical stuff, but sometimes, you know, the technology beats you to the punch. Tony was here earlier. I don't know if you were still around, Tony. Enterprising also checked in. Of course, Emo Nerd Girl. So thank you all for being in the chat. Monique, who went and grabbed a cheese snack while she was waiting. Terrence was here again because we're starting late. I put up a little post there mentioning why we were running behind tonight. Eric is here. Hello, Eric. So without further ado, let's start the show off with the box office chat that I promised you guys earlier. So, well, it looks like Universal Pictures is about to have a pretty good weekend at the box office, because not only do they have Super Mario Galaxy, from Illumination, which is part of Universal Pictures, in theaters for its second weekend this upcoming weekend, but at the same time, they've got that new movie, You, Me, and Tuscany, which, according to the Wrap, should add up to a big box office weekend for this Universal Pictures house of movie studios and labels and all that. Super Mario Galaxy is well on its way to $1 billion. And of course, the new rom-com from Kat Coiro, that looks like is, for the amount of money they spend making it, it's going to give a good return on it. Because you look at the cast, like you got Regé-Jean Page and Halle Bailey in that thing. Come on. People are going to go watch that. And, reminders of him is a good comparison to that. And of course, Super Mario Galaxy, it opened to like 372.5 million. They say here in the Wrap here again. And the first movie made $1 billion. This one is well on its way to, pretty much crossing that mark just about as easily as the first one did in 2023. And then you add on top of that again, You, Me, and Tuscany, you're looking at a pretty impressive weekend at the box office, all for, the two Universal Pictures, productions that we got. Because if you look at the budget for You, Me, and Tuscany, they only made it for around 18 million. And they're projecting a $12 to $15 million opening weekend, which pretty much means that it's halfway there to, breaking even, more or less. And yeah, it's an Italian setting, and, it kind of ties into like the whole Milan Olympics vibe from the Winter Olympics games that happened not too long ago. So if you are going to the movie theater this weekend, let me know. Are you going to be watching Super Mario Galaxy? Are you going to be watching You, Me, and Tuscany? Maybe a bit of both. You know, there's a nice combo there. Monique is here, and Terrence is still here. We appreciate I appreciate you guys for sticking through, you know, the delays. And I'm sure that cheese snack was good, much like I'm sure watching Regé Jean Page on screen is gonna be good. Yes, that is that one. Yumi in Tuscany has Regé Jean Page. I love saying his name. As you can tell, Regé Jean Page and and Haley Bailey in it, or Halle Bailey. I don't know. I guess it's because I still sometimes trip myself up by saying Halle Bailey, well, or Halle Berry instead of Halle Bailey. They need to do a movie sometime, you know. Could be they could do like a new Freaky Friday sort of a situation. Anyway, now I'm just being racist, reverse racist. I don't know. Anyway, before I trip myself further down that rabbit hole, let's get into some international box office numbers. Super Mario Galaxy, of course, it kicked off #1 at the UK and Ireland box office. You gotta say that one right. And you know that's not a surprise. It ended up making almost $20 million. That equates to around 15 million pounds, according to ComScore in its opening weekend. Of course, Project Hail Mary for the Brits is still the second most popular movie, adding another $4.5 million to reach a total of 29.1 million in the UK. The drama also coming in the rest of the top 5, and it's no surprise, you know, Super Mario was pretty much the biggest movie in the world, almost in every market that it released in this past weekend. So the UK kind of following suit. Then you look at some news from the Korean box office. Project Hail Mary ascended to #1, dethroning The King's Warden. Of course, you know, Korea is always, you know, an interesting market, and it's a big one, you know, especially on the Far East Asian, you know, region, as it were. And well, it looks like the weekend, April 3rd to the 5th, it wasn't Super Mario Galaxy that rose to the top. I don't think it's actually released there yet. So Project Hail Mary ruled the roost because it was the biggest movie in town, making $2.4 million worth of money. So obviously, the local currency is different, and that adds to the cumulative gross in the Korean market for Project Hail Mary to $12.2 million. So amaze. Keep on amazing. Now, from there, we move back to the US North American box office. Let's talk about The Devil Wears Prada 2, which had just hit tracking, still a few weeks away, but it just hit tracking. The early projections are here, and they're looking at you know, a really solid start on the runway, as it were, of $66 million in its US opening. So yeah, they put out a new trailer this week, and you know, the hype machine is in full gear. Now, of course, summer begins May 1st with The Devil Wears Prada 2 from 20th Century Studios. Is now, you know, 3 weeks away from us, so that's around when that initial tracking number comes out. You know, the pre-sale numbers aren't really figured into this, so usually then the projection will rise or fall depending on how good the pre-sales are between now and the time the movie comes out. But 66 million plus is a really good opening number. You look at you know, the pre-sales, the early, you know, pre-sales numbers, they're not really like very substantive yet, but they're looking at that, and those numbers are at first glance looking like they might be doubling what Wuthering Heights ended up doing. And of course, Wuthering Heights had pre-sales running for about a month and some change, so they had a longer pre-sale period, and you know, in a shorter period of time, Devil Wears Prada 2 is about to double that number. The tickets went on sale on the 12th of March. So yeah, I mean, the opening forecast, it all adds up there, and it's no surprise that the movie is going to do really well with women, young and old. But I mean, of course, there's a lot of guys that are interested too. Sometimes they'll be getting dragged in of their own accord or otherwise. And I mean, you know, compare that to Barbie, The Little Mermaid, It Ends With Us. It's, you know, the first choice is a metric that they use where they ask you like, hey, is that your first choice at the box office? If you're going to the movies, is that the movie you're going to see this weekend? And that metric, the first choice metric, is looking really good with women over 25 who are all saying that weekend we're going to see Devil Wears Prada 2. And it's just behind Wicked, which is still, you know, that first Wicked movie was huge, but it's also well ahead of It Ends With Us, which was a big movie with women over 25. So yeah, I mean, it's looking pretty good all around, and you know what, is going to be playing its way into Mother's Day weekend on the second weekend. So if it starts off at 66 million, then you know The Devil Wears Prada 2 is probably going to be well on its way to a great second weekend, and probably hopefully not that big of a drop off, which is what we all like to see. Figure Drawing is here. Hello, Figure Drawing, saying I like that critics hate Mario Galaxy. Dig that hole deeper. Yeah, I think they're already pretty deep in there. Has a $1 billion movie ever had such a critic versus audience discrepancy? I feel like Transformers had a lower critics. We talked about this the other day. Transformers, Age of Extinction, even maybe Dark of the Moon, both of them were $1 billion movies. I'm pretty sure their critic scores on Rotten Tomatoes were lower than Super Mario. So yeah, I mean, it's not the first, but it's definitely very rare that happens. So, but obviously, that's why we made the comparison that is this the new Transformers right now, Super Mario, that it doesn't matter how much the critics hate on it, people go see the movie. So anyway, but you know what, speaking of the movies, Cinema United, this is the union that basically all of your favorite movie theaters are a part of, and they put on CinemaCon, which is happening later this month. They just created this new thing called the Filmmaker Leadership Council, which of course is headed by Jerry Bruckheimer, the famous Hollywood producer who's behind things like the Top Gun Maverick, and in the original Top Gun as well. He just did the F1 movie. He's working on another movie with Joseph Kosinski that's going to be about UFOs. And then, of course, Emma Thomas, who is the wife and producing partner of Sir President Christopher Nolan. So between Emma Thomas and Jerry Bruckheimer, they've got two big leaders, to lead this new Filmmaker Leadership Council, the FLC, I guess is what that abbreviates to. But also they have other significant names in there. You got Brad Bird, the director of the Incredibles movies. You got Ryan Coogler, of course, he doesn't need any introduction. Jason Reitman, son of Ivan Reitman, directed one of the Ghostbusters movies from a few years ago, and Celine Song, of course. They're also joining this partnership in order to provide, according to the rap, recommendations on issues facing theatrical movies. So this is, I guess, a bit of an advisory council, but I think for the most part, what this ends up being is it gives Cinema United, these big names on the talent side of the business. I mean, and also at the same time on the production side, you have, of course, two of the most prolific producers in Hollywood today, Emma Thomas on the left and Jerry Bruckheimer on the right here. Between the two of them, they bring a lot of clout, and then you add in, directors like Ryan Coogler, Brad Bird, Jason Reitman, Celine Song. You've got representation, you've got clout, and the idea behind all of this is going to be to kind of voice, and then obviously this means that they have the Cinema United, a union in tow on when they say stuff like, okay, we want to make these changes in the theatrical market. These are the places where things can be different and better. And so I think they bring a lot of credibility, but at the same time, this is now going to be a more concerted effort than, I mean, I think it's going to hit different when this council speaks on issues that are theatrical issues versus like the CEO of Cinema United, which I'll talk about in a minute. Because the CEO of Cinema United, you could say that person will always have a bias because he's the CEO of the organization. Whereas these, producers and stuff, they're, on this little new council, obviously they work with the studios, but at the same time, if they are talking about these are the ways in which we can improve the theatrical business, then it kind of puts them in a nice nexus crossroads where they can kind of be in the middle of the two sides. Hey, my cat's saying hello. So I think this works really well. You got Bruckheimer serving as the chair, and then Thomas as the vice chair. Cinema United, speaking of, President CEO Michael O'Leary actually had released a statement alongside this announcement saying our industry is strongest when it works together to promote the singular experience of seeing a movie on the big screen. That is what drives us, and it is what will forge the next great era in cinema. I don't know why that's capitalized in this weird way. Maybe it's like a chapter title to his book or something. The importance of having Jerry and Emma at the helm of this initiative at such a critical time for our industry cannot be overstated. The insight, leadership, passion, and impact from the entire Leadership Council is unparalleled, and we are honored to be working alongside all of them to secure the future of the theatrical experience for generations to come. So yeah, that was his statement. But then also, some of the issues that they're going to be tackling early on. This is from the same I think press release that they put out there, the FLC put out there, the issues at hand that they're going to want to tackle immediately, or that's going to be like their first priority, will be consolidation in the industry, aka Paramount buying Warner Brothers, sustainable windows, the promotion and marketing of the cinematic experience, and highlighting innovation and technology. So all of these are, elements that some of them fans don't really care about, but some of them I think it's important. Like sustainable theatrical release windows is very important. Universal just committed to a 45-day exclusive theatrical window recently. We talked about it on the show. It's very important that Universal does that. They put out the most movies of any studio, and I think it was last year they put out 20 movies. That was more than Warner Brothers, that was more than Disney, that was more than Sony, that was more than Paramount. So it's important that that studio, and all of their labels that sit under Universal Pictures, including DreamWorks Animation, Illumination, Focus Features, all of those, they're part of that 20 movies that they put out. It's important that they have a longer theatrical window because that leads to better revenue post theatrical. We've talked about this many times. I think all of us want to see movies play in theaters longer so we can get back to that time when people don't have to make these excuses, or if somebody does make an excuse, it's like, I'll wait till it comes on streaming. You're like, are you sure about that? It's not going to be on streaming for a while. Like, you sure you don't want to just come watch it in a movie theater? Yeah, so for those of us who want to see a movie in the movie theater, I think this is important, and this is a good initiative. Bruckheimer and Emma Thomas both had statements, quotes included in this release. Bruckheimer was saying, as filmmakers, we pour everything we have into creating these moments. We are at a defining point in the future of this industry, and I'm honored to join this incredible group of filmmakers and work alongside Cinema United to ensure that experience endures in cities and towns across the globe for audiences everywhere. And Emma Thomas added on to that, saying, this is a profound cultural value. There is a profound cultural value in gathering together with a group of strangers and connecting while experiencing something special on the big screen. So, yeah, this is, I'm sure, going to be on display at CinemaCon this year, and so the timeliness of this is it's not a coincidence, right? Speaking of which, it's also not a coincidence that Cinema United chief Michael O'Leary just did an interview with the Variety, and he touched upon many of things, including like the Narnia series of movies that Netflix is going to be releasing exclusively in IMAX for a few weeks. He talked about the potential merger for Warner Brothers with Paramount that's ongoing right now, and also like what the future of the industry is going to be. And as somebody who's sort of like hearing a lot of things directly from movie theater owners, not just the big ones but also a lot of the mom and pop ones, I think it's important that Michael O'Leary, like, we hear of like what his perspective, at least, because it's from the side of the theatrical distribution. They're not the studios. He represents the movie theaters. And like he's likes to point out, a lot of those movie theaters are mom and pop shops. They're smaller theaters. They're, like he likes to say, they're Main Street businesses, not Wall Street, led businesses, aka they're not big corporations that have, publicly traded stock on Wall Street. They're just small companies that are, private companies that own maybe a few theaters, maybe a singular theater that has a few screens that you go watch in your town, and then maybe you go and have dinner after, or you have grab a bite to eat before you go to the movie theater. If those theaters close down, then a lot of those other businesses suffer because of that, because people aren't there to see movies and do those other things that they do around that. But he was doing an interview here. I'm gonna just quickly scroll through a few of these questions. But before we do that, I want to check in on the chat here. Tony has woken up from his sleep, and he's back. Yes, hi Tony. And yes, Monique says hi to Georgie. Georgie is not in the room anymore. I'm sure she'll be back and she'll make an appearance. But Right Dude is here. I am doing well. Right Dude. John is on assignment today. He'll be back tomorrow, so don't you worry. He'll be back tomorrow with us. It's just me today. Thankfully for the last time this week, because then tomorrow John will be back and it will be a two-person show. But as I was going through this a moment ago, I'm not going to go through the whole interview. You guys can go to Variety and look for this and read it in your own time if you really want to go through it. It's a very insightful interview. It's not a very long one either, so it won't take you more than a few minutes. I just thought there was a few things that he pointed out here that, and again, it kind of goes towards just the overall narrative of where Cinema United sits right now with what's going on in the filmmaking industry in Hollywood overall, especially with CinemaCon coming up, where all of these studios and a lot of their studio heads will be in the same building as all the movie theater owners, including the leadership of Cinema United and Michael O'Leary, who's talking about, the biggest challenges that your members face. Well, he said consolidation. Our experience in that regard has not been spectacular. We think it reduces choices for consumers. It will definitely mean fewer jobs. Beyond that, there's just the cost of doing business. Consumers, running a movie theater keeps getting more expensive. Consumers are being more discerning about how to spend their income. They want more. We have to give them more, but there's a cost associated with that. And as other margins get squeezed, the math becomes challenging. So basically, he's saying, much like everything else in life right now, it's getting more expensive to run theater, movie theater businesses. And so when you look at movie studios consolidating, it creates more of that, anti-competitive environment. And usually competition drives prices down, less competition drives prices up. And, it also kind of stifles innovation, I think is his message, which is just, that's just a general principle of economics, but obviously it applies to the Hollywood, industry as well, the business of movie making. Now he was also asked about hey, you were opposed to the Netflix Warner Brothers bid. That failed. So, but why were you against that idea? And I think I'm going to TLDR it for you. He basically said, look, he's opposed to any sort of consolidation. He doesn't want Paramount to buy Warner Brothers. He didn't want Netflix to buy Warner Brothers. Why? Because it creates less competition. And it's a situation where he highlighted, and I think rightfully so, it ain't broken. Warner Brothers ain't broken. You don't pay he pointed out, rightfully, you don't pay $111 billion for a company if it's imperiled. In his words, these are her exact words. And what he was worried about with Netflix was they just wanted and look, this guy, he's being pretty honest here, because Ted Sarandos wouldn't say this out loud. Most others, David Zaslav wouldn't say it out loud. But really, Netflix's biggest interest in Warner Brothers was not the theatrical business. They were playing it up, and yes, they probably would have followed through with it as well, maybe for a little while. But ultimately, Netflix was after Warner Brothers for the IP, for the treasure trove of IP that Warner Brothers has, the second most valuable in all of Hollywood outside of Disney. And he pointed out here, Michael O'Leary, they had an antipathy. Basically didn't really care about the theatrical experience. And Ted Sarandos hasn't been shy about that. And so he was like, look, at least Paramount has people working for them that come from a film background, so they will try to make that work. But, there's still problems about that. Also, for example, he was saying, Ted Sarandos kept saying traditional windows. If you ask, and this is a great point that he makes, by the way, Michael O'Leary said, one of the things that Ted Sarandos talked about was the traditional theatrical window. If you ask 10 people, and this is a really good point, if you ask 10 people what the traditional release window is for a movie, you're going to get 12 different answers. There is no traditional window. And he's not wrong, because even before COVID, it was an unwritten rule. Most studios were kind of going off a 60 to 90 day window, and then depending on if a movie did really well or not, they might decide to put it out on digital or get it into streaming faster. It wasn't all of a sudden overnight after the pandemic they just decided 45 days or less. It had been coming down over time, the amount of days that movies would stay in theaters exclusively for a while. And every studio has a different barometer for what they see as being the best number for their movies. And even now, that's the same thing. Universal just raised theirs from 17 days to 45. We know that, Warner Brothers does around, or tries to do around 45 to 60. Disney kind of does 60 to 90 days. And they brought it to 45. Now they've raised it back up. And Disney movies, Disney basically pretty much every year outside of maybe 1 year since the pandemic has been the highest grossing movie studio in the business. And they were that for a long time, even before the pandemic. And they've pretty much always had the longest theatrical windows in that period. So clearly putting your movies in theaters longer helps you make more money. But also they have a lot of good IP. So, all of these things are connected. Disney's putting out Star Wars movies, they're putting out Marvel movies, they're putting out Pixar movies, whereas Paramount's putting out a Transformers movie, which haven't been doing very well recently. So, or, Warner Brothers wasn't putting out a lot of good DC movies. So, but that being said, Michael O'Leary is still opposed to the Paramount purchase of Warner Brothers because he just, I think the problem with that, which he does a great job of pointing out here, is like, you look, Warner Brothers doesn't need to be acquired. Like, it ain't broke, don't fix it. But at the same time, like, he's not convinced that Paramount will be able to keep up with the 30 movies a year that David Ellison has been promising, because like they brought up the whole idea of like, hey, when Disney bought 20th Century Fox, like, you know, theaters still closed. They closed down because Disney ultimately, you know, wasn't able to keep up with the number they promised in terms of the number of movies they would release every year. And so what are the chances that Paramount can keep up with that? Paramount will have way more debt than Disney got after acquiring Fox. It's the highest leveraged buyout in the history of Hollywood. And I mean, they're gonna have $80 billion of debt to pay down. Sometimes like your hands are so tied with just the debt you're paying down that it just reduces your ability. Even if you want to put out 30 movies a year, you just can't, because you're not going to get the financing, you know, because your credit rating is low and all that stuff, which are all things you have talked about in recent weeks. And Michael O'Leary is very aware of that, of course, you know, working in the industry. So yeah. And then also he pointed out, like, look, theaters closed down after Disney bought 20th Century Fox. Now within 7 years, if you have another big studio getting rolled up into another legacy studio like Warner Brothers rolling up into Paramount, that's like a double shock. That double whammy will, you know, have a further effect, because we're already like got to a point now since the pandemic where movies are making around $2 billion less at the box office than they did before the pandemic. And Michael O'Leary seems to think that it's at least 1 billion of that has to do with the fact that we don't have a separate 20th Century Studios anymore. It's all part of Disney now. And then when Warner Brothers falls into Paramount, it's going to be hard for them to like be able to keep up with the 30 movies a year, and then therefore the business will shrink even more. Now, the one good thing about, you know, what he mentioned here, I mean, also the other thing, he actually pointed out the example of David Zaslav was at CinemaCon a few years ago, and he stood up there and said under his leadership, Warner Brothers is going to put out 20 movies a year. Guess what? Warner Brothers never put out 20 movies a year as long as David Zaslav has been in charge of the studio. I think their goal this year is to put out 16. And to do that, they hired a second vice president of physical production, because they were like, we don't have enough people to oversee all these movies, so we can put out even 16 of them. So I mean, forget 20. They're trying to just get to 16 a year, right? They kind of had that number last year. They're trying to continue doing that this year. But 20 is still, you know, like 5 more than what they're doing. So I mean, how is Paramount going to make this work, right? Like, it's a great point. And yeah, all around, you know, the one good thing that they talked about, in my opinion at least, or on look in the bright side moment of this interview, was Amazon is doing really well right now with Project Hail Mary. It's a huge hit. It's the biggest hit Amazon MGM has ever had, and they want to put out another like dozen movies in theaters this year. And Michael O'Leary's like, look, we are really excited about that, and we hope Amazon keeps on keeping on with that. And then of course they brought up Apple, because like I've mentioned before to you guys, Apple had a bunch of movies that they were releasing. They had promised to put out a dozen movies in theaters a year. They had promised to spend $1 billion a year on theatrical movies. But after having their biggest hit in F1 last year, guess what? Apple has no movies going in theaters this year. And I mean, Michael O'Leary trying to, you know, be a little, you know, let's say, you know, a softer, you know, on the softer side of things, when he's responding to that, he was like, he's not like saying, oh yeah, Apple got scared and, you know, shied away. No, he was like, look, they're still trying to figure out their movie making structure and you know what it is that they want to do. F1 was incredibly successful. In a perfect world, you would have 2 or 3 of those from Apple a year. So yeah, I mean, he's trying to be nice to Apple, and I mean, obviously, you know, Apple, I think, is trying to do a bit of a reset, because they came out the door swinging, and then they had like 4 or 5 big high profile flops before F1 finally hit. And it's not like the success of F1 can easily be replicated, because F1 is a very unique, you know, case study, like, because it has a built-in audience with everybody that loves F1 in real life. You can't really do that if you like made another Killers of the Flower Moon, you know, or another Napoleon or another Argyle. So I think Apple's trying to figure their things out. Of course, I mentioned the other things in this interview were about Universal, you know, the pandemic, like you mentioned, how the box office is still down. And then, you know, he was finally asked, like, hey, What about that survive till 25 mantra that was around, last year, and then everybody was like, you're gonna get a Jurassic Park movie, an Avatar movie, 3 Marvel films. We're gonna be back, baby. And then we talked about it like earlier this year, guys. Like the movie theaters thought they were gonna be just rolling in it, and instead what happened was last year's box office was pretty much flat with the year before. 2023 still seems to be the high point post-pandemic, although this year seems to be off to a much better start, the best since the pandemic. So that being said, I mean, Michael O'Leary pointed out something interesting here. He said, look, movie theaters shouldn't talk about things in 12-month chunks. They need to talk about them in 5-year chunks. So don't look at it in like a 1-year period. Like it's not, don't think about like, oh, just 2025 is going to be the year that, we are back. Think about it like what's going to be going on from 2026 to 2030, for example. Let's see how things are over the course of 5 years. Because you just, if the trend is going up over the course of 5 years, that overall, I think, is a better indicator, according to Michael O'Leary, than if you were just looking at a 1 year and we're back kind of a situation. So yeah, I mean, a lot of what he was saying in this interview made a lot of sense to me. If you are worried about movie theaters shutting down near you, then I think yeah, the Paramount Warner Brothers merger is definitely something to be concerned about, because it is very difficult, like if you're being honest, like for them to stick with that promise that they're going to release 30 movies a year. Disney made a similar promise when they bought Fox. They couldn't stick to it. David Zaslav wanted to put out 20 movies a year when he bought Warner Brothers from Discovery with Discovery, and they have never delivered 20 movies a year. So can David Ellison really follow through on that? And Michael O'Leary, who's again the CEO president of Cinema United that put on CinemaCon, I mean he's expressing his concern on behalf of all the movie theaters, which I think are valid concerns. So yeah. Anyway, Apple got burned with Argyle and the Napoleon movie. Yeah, absolutely they did. Absolutely they did. M2G saying, I'm going to New York City for a few days and I always check AMC Lincoln Square. Hello, M2G, by the way. So they're going to have Project Hail Mary for like 2 weeks in April in IMAX 70mm. There's your... You know what? Yes. John and I will both be going to see Project Hail Mary at that Lincoln, Lincoln Square IMAX screen. It's one of those 70mm IMAX screens. I think there's like a dozen of them in the whole country. And this wasn't, of course, is the one in New York. I think there's one in Virginia. There's a couple in LA. There's like a few. There's like 1 or 2 in Texas. Then I'm thinking there's one in Chicago. So yeah, 2 weeks in April. I'm gonna look that up. I have a feeling that's gonna get booked up pretty quickly. So yeah, but we'll see. Anyway, let's see what else you got. So you're back from outer space. Yeah, still in space. Yeah. I mean, Project Hail Mary is my favorite movie of the year. But yeah, look, I'm looking forward to CinemaCon. We're gonna be covering it like we do every year. I'm not gonna be there this year. I'm really thinking about making it out there next year. But this year we'll just keep an eye out for all the announcements, and of course you guys will be here, and we'll talk about it pretty much Monday through Friday. Disney will the 2 days that I'm most excited about: Disney's presentation and then the Warner Brothers presentation, and maybe even the Paramount one, because it's kind of a weird limbo situation. Obviously Warner Brothers and Paramount will still have a separate separate presentations this year because they're not the same one company yet. But I mean, Amazon MGM had a really good presentation last year, and now we got Project Hail Mary playing and Masters of the Universe coming out. So I'm interested to see what they have to bring. We'll go over like the whole CinemaCon schedule soon as well, so we'll have a better idea of like what's when, and then we'll, like we did last year, we'll go live right around the time the presentations finish on a nightly basis. Because they're in Vegas, that might mean some of our shows might start pretty late, like tonight. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on it. So, but speaking of Paramount, let's see what do you got here. MTG saying, I looked it up, there were some tickets available. Okay, after the show is done, I'm going in and booking myself a couple of tickets. Yeah, dude, yes. And something just fell on the side. I'll take care of that later. But yeah, I mean, Project Hail Mary, if anybody hasn't seen it yet, please do go see it. Patrick, how are you doing, man? It's been a while since I've seen you in the live chat. A Street Fighter Mortal Kombat crossover would be amazing. I just don't think like the same studios make the movies, right? Because Warner Brothers is through New Line, they're making the Mortal Kombat movies. I believe Street Fighter is coming through Legendary, which is at Paramount. But I guess, you know what, once Warner Brothers and Paramount are under one roof, then I guess it's possible. It's definitely I mean, it's still Legendary is like a separate studio that's like the financier, and they just work with, you know, with a distributing studio like Paramount. So it will be interesting if they'll want to cross over Street Fighter with Mortal Kombat, but I would love to see that. I would love to see that. Yeah, I mean, we would have loved to see it in the video game world, but maybe we can see it in the movies or at the movies. All right, good to hear that you're doing well, Patrick. Figure Drawing saying, I fear that Street Fighter is going to be super panned. You know what? I'm almost expecting it to be, but guess what? That didn't stop me from seeing the first Mortal Kombat. So, I mean, that movie had problems. Like, it jumped from the middle of the second act to a third act, and then it just felt a little off with how it was paced. Doesn't matter, still had the moments, and it feels like they're improving on a lot of those criticisms for this upcoming, you know, upcoming year. So, or this upcoming sequel, I should say. So it'll be interesting. Uh, I don't know, Figure Drawing. I mean, I've liked the trailer so far, but I mean, it could come across as unintentional cringe comedy. We'll see. Capcom would have to approve it in Netherlands. Oh, yeah, you're right, Enterprising. Okay. Yeah, Capcom wouldn't let that. I mean, it's I mean, if both of the movie franchises are doing really well and there's opportunity for money to be made, you know, I'm just saying, everybody likes money, so I wouldn't be surprised if they were to pull the trigger on that. So anyway, we'll see. We will see. But hey, let's talk about the Paramount Warner Brothers stuff a little bit more, shall we? I know you guys are always excited about this. Don't worry, this won't take very long. Paramount has now launched a global publishing imprint, which is basically a way for them to, you know, publish books and comics and stuff that are going to be, and probably like, you know, art of books in-house that are going to be based on the IP that they own. So soon to include probably Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, and all those things, and DC. And you know, they're gonna have original IP as well, but it looks like they're bringing, you know, a publishing imprint in-house. They're building it from the ground up, as opposed to like working with like a Penguin Random House or something like that. So it's interesting, but I don't think this is gonna matter too much outside of, maybe I think their goal might be like they can create some new IP by releasing some New York Times bestseller books, and then, you know, it's already in-house, so then you don't have to really, you know, like, spend money out of house to like license the book's film rights. Like for example, Andy Weir and his publishing company got paid like 9 million, I think it was 9 or 10 million, to license the film rights for Project Hail Mary like 6-7 years ago, before the book even got published. So yeah, I mean, these book deals could be very lucrative. So if Paramount is doing this and they have an in-house imprint for that, you know, then it gives them an easier path to potential like hits that they want to turn into movies without going out of house. You're essentially paying yourself to like license the movie rights at that point, and then you can, you know, it makes sense from a business standpoint. You can, you know, completely license out all the other rights, merchandise, and everything. It's like more linear integration or vertical integration in the company. Ellison better not harm DC Comics. I don't think he would. I think, look, David Ellison might be a lot of things. I don't think he is like a dumb businessman. Like, he wouldn't be where he is today. I mean, like, again, he's had a lot of, like, you know, his father's money to play with, but he's not like gonna destroy something that's already making his company money, at least not intentionally. So I guess we'll see. But yeah, let's keep on going. So I just want to point out, because I think this will be interesting. Like, this is something that will fly under the radar, but I think a lot of people will notice that, you know, that down the road, like, they might publish a book that becomes like a top seller on the New York Times list, and then a few years later we get a movie, and like Paramount is like, we published the book, people love the book, now we make a movie from it, and then, you know, it becomes a whole franchise. If they want to do like 30 movies a year, they're going to need to do more of that. So I think it's important, but it is something that I think a lot of people probably won't pay attention to until it has some success. Hi, Georgie. Yeah, exactly, Watcher. I agree with you. Ellison will use everything, including comics and gaming, is next. Netflix would have killed all of this. I don't know if Netflix would have killed it. They probably would have merged it into some of their other, like, Netflix has a gaming, you know, business. It's just not very prominent. And I think Netflix will actually need to do more of those things down the road, because as we start to reach like the upper limits of how many new subscribers they can get, even with ads, like their revenue is going to start to plateau. So like, it's like, think about it from an Apple standpoint, right? Because Apple has now basically gone from being just a hardware company, hardware software company, to mostly being a services business. You know, everything Apple does now, like if you look at their product strategy, it's all got to do with the fact that they're trying to make, they're trying to get you into their ecosystem, whether it's through a MacBook, through an iPhone or an iPad or anything like that. Their goal is to get you in as a customer with one of their hardware elements, sometimes multiple different ones, and then they'll sell you all the services that they have, whether it's the Apple News, music, their productivity suite, that's like their own version of Microsoft Office, all of those things. That's what Apple's really trying to sell you, because those services is where their revenue lies. And so yeah, I mean, and David Ellison, I do think on the Paramount side, he is a film producer first and foremost. It's just that's kind of also the worrying sign, because he's never been in the position that he is in now with Paramount. So it's going to be interesting to see how well does he do in that situation. And he's, for the most part, done a good job of surrounding himself with very experienced executives from the media business, including television and movies. But then again, he hired Jeff Shell, and Jeff Shell did it again, and they just fired him, and they're gonna end up paying him like $5 million or $5 billion, whatever. Like they're gonna end up paying him $5 million to like walk away. And so clearly, again, David Ellison, judgment is not infallible. Yeah, the Georgie cameo is here now. She's sitting up on one of the desks, and she wants a treat, so we'll see. But yeah. Is the text blurry? I'll see if I can fix that up. I was having technical issues earlier, so I'll see if I can fix that for you guys. But anyway, let's see. Netflix would have killed it. Integration would have killed it. Netflix is a tech company. They don't care about comics, theaters, or gaming unless it's all digital, which would have killed comics. Yeah, it's again, it's at this point it's a what if scenario, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it anymore, because Netflix is not buying Warner Brothers. But speaking of Warner Brothers, Warner Brothers Discovery shareholders have been advised to vote against David Zaslav's $550 million plus golden parachute windfall payout from Paramount. Now, of course, the Paramount deal, if you guys are not aware, so the Paramount, we talked about this not too long ago, right? The Paramount deal, now because of the value of that deal being like $111 billion, thank you for your, I mean, I'll fight all night long if I can to get this show up and running. But yeah, I appreciate you guys showing up and watching. But yeah, I mean, this is coming from a proxy advisory firm, ISS, not the International Space Station, but they basically are a firm that advises shareholders, like, hey, they've got a investors voting, a special meeting coming up where they'll be voting on the new Paramount Warner Brothers deal. They did recommend that you vote in favor of the deal, but they said to vote against the golden parachute payout that David Zaslav is going to get. And they had reasons for it. I think the biggest reason was they were like, look, he's just getting too much money based on where the company is right now, and it ends up being even more than $550 million, because they're going to be covering the tax payments that he will get charged on it. So they basically kind of like, if you ever got a bonus, so what your company might do is they'll give your bonus check will actually be higher than the actual bonus, because they'll cover the tax that will be charged to your bonus. So they give you extra money so that the math works out, so that they make up for the tax that would have been taken out of the bonus, so you get the actual total amount of your bonus at the end of the year. I've had that happen to me before. It's good for the companies to do it, but it's one thing when you're getting, a bonus that is in the 4 or 5 figures, but it's another thing when you're getting it like in the hundreds of millions of dollars, and especially when, your company is just being sold for, hundreds of billions of dollars. So now the thing is, it doesn't matter because yes, the shareholders need to approve the Paramount and Warner Brothers deal. That matters. Like that matters, the $111 billion deals. But as far as voting against the golden parachute for David Zaslav, that's more of a, it's more of like a in spirit kind of a thing, because it's not it's really not something that's gonna actually affect the outcome of whether David Zaslav gets the severance payout or not. You remember last year, as they point out in this article, it's a symbolic gesture. Last year, the shareholders voted against the compensation package that David Zaslav got, but the board of the company still approved it. So this vote, even if the shareholders do vote against it, it would be more of just like a symbolic thing. Like, they're like, the shareholders don't approve of the amount of money the board is going to be paying David Zaslav, but they can't stop the board from doing it. Sometimes where there's enough of an outcry, you can put some pressure on the board to change its mind and maybe lower the amount of money that the executive is going to get. But ultimately, this is more going to be symbolic if they vote against it or not. But yeah, I mean, I personally, if I was like a shareholder in Warner Brothers Discovery, I think that's way too much money like he just literally did like an episode of Flip It or whatever, like, Flipping Sunset or whatever, any one of those HGTV shows where you buy a house and then you flip the house after like doing some improvements on it. That's what he did. He basically rehabilitated Warner Brothers from under, AT&T ownership, and then he sold it. So should he be getting like 550 million plus for that? I don't know. Yeah, but it's just, yeah. It kind of bothers me, but again, the shareholders don't really have a final say on this. It will be more of a symbolic gesture if they vote against it. They did vote against his compensation last year, like I said. So if that's anything to go off, I have a feeling they'll probably vote against this as well. But it's not going to matter. David Zaslav probably will still get paid, but that's okay. I'd rather he, maybe he donates some of that money because he's like, okay, in light of the overwhelming vote against it, there's a good gesture. He's not going to do that. But anyway, let's move on. I'm sure you guys are tired of the business talk. Let's talk about some movies. Let's talk about movie talk madness, shall we? We got a report here in Variety, which John was really excited about because John made the rundown for today's show, and he was like, yeah, after the Gen Z, according to this new study, goes to the movies. Younger audiences are driving the box office, according to this study. So Rebecca Rubin was reporting on this in Variety, and I'll read out the first paragraph here. I think this is really important. Who says young people don't go to the movies? During the pandemic, Hollywood worried that Gen Zers would never get into the habit of going to theaters, preferring streaming and on their smartphones instead. But Gen Z is now the most active cinema-going demographic, attending more films per year than their elders, according to a new Fandango study. They're also spending more per visit on concessions and on premium formats like IMAX. I mean, I think we've talked about this before. Like, if you're a Gen Zer, you want that communal experience because you grew up at times when, like, especially with the COVID pandemic, if you're young enough, like, you grew up with like just not being able to see people, and now we live in an online world for the most part. So going to the movie theaters is one of those few experiences where you can like just spend time with other people in person, and it's just, you crave that. You want to be offline for a bit. You want to just put your phone away and watch a movie and enjoy it with your friends or strangers in a movie theater with a big screen and just sound washing all over you. So to me, it's not that surprising, but it does, kind of strike you if you're like, oh, we are wondering, like, will young people want to go see movies or not? Because they didn't grow up in that environment the way some of us, might have done in the 90s or even the 80s when movies were like a bigger part of pop culture. But yeah, the numbers that they point out here, I think, are pretty important too. Exhibitors largely attribute the decline to fewer newer releases from major Hollywood studios. So Fandango surveyed 7,000 adults, 5,091 of whom consider themselves moviegoers, or people who went to one or more movies in the past year. That's a pretty low bar. But by generation, 87% of Gen Zers and 82% of millennials saw at least one movie theatrically in the past 12 months, compared to 70% of Gen Xers and 58% of baby boomers. Now, Gen Z and millennials are also returned more frequently, with each demo averaging about 7 visits per year, ahead of Gen X's 6.1 and baby boomers 5.1. Motivations, of course, varied across the age groups. The millennials treat moviegoing as an escape from the daily routine. I can relate to that. While Gen Z sees it primarily as a social activity. I can also relate to that. And Gen Z also attributes a better selection of movies and the appeal of leaving the home as key drivers of attendance. So exactly what I was saying a minute ago. In contrast, Gen X cites rising ticket prices, fewer appealing releases, and better at-home options as reasons for going less often. So that makes sense too. I think that's still true for a lot of people, but this right here, I think, is the quote that I wanted to get to, and then I want to get into your comments. What do you guys think about this? But here's what Jeremy Henline had to say. They're the executive VP at Fandango that were part of the study, and they said, while there has been a perception that Gen Z is less engaged with theatrical moviegoing, our data shows that their momentum has been building. What's especially notable is how strongly they value the shared communal aspect of the experience, reinforcing that that theaters continue to play an important role as a social destination for younger audiences. So there you go. I mean, that's literally. I mean, this all ties back to what Cinema United CEO Michael O'Leary was saying, right? He's talking about, like, look, it's that's the value of movie theaters. You want to go and have that communal experience, and movie theaters are parts of communities, and people want to have that, and they want it to be, whether it's escape for the millennials or whether it's a social activity for the Gen Xers, or for the Gen Zers, I should say. It's important, and it just, you might not think that Gen Zers go to a lot of movies, but they are the biggest demographic right now, and I think that's a good thing. That's a good thing. M2G is like, Gen Z is good for something. Yeah. I mean, look, I think they're not. I mean, again, these are 7,000 people, so it's like you can only extrapolate that sample size so much. So, and there's always going to be like people who are technically Gen Xers or baby boomers who will go to the movies more often than most Gen Zers or millennials that they know, and that's okay. I just think, as a study, that the study is meant to be more of like this broad side, view of where things are today. And it's good to know that, the younger generations are keeping, the projector bulbs alive and well in those projectors, so that way, years down the road, movie theaters can still be a part of our cultural zeitgeist. Like, that's something that people worried about for a while, including a lot of people, filmmakers who make the movies that play in theaters. It's good to know that young people are still going to the movies, because I think that's key to movies continuing to be a big part of our culture. Business side of things getting tired. Does anyone remember Hollywood pre-shareholders good times? I know. Yeah, that was a long time ago. Saw barely any Disney animation in theater. Yeah, well, I mean, Disney has a lot of options though. But Disney animation is a big part of today's box office as well. They had like two, if not $3 billion movies last year. They'll have a couple of them this year. Yeah, my camera probably froze for a moment. I'm sorry. Like, again, technical issues I'm still trying to figure out. But M2G saying Gen Z truly grew up on social media, so they can have community and not talk to strangers. Well, but that's the thing though. Like, the online experience is still not a substitute for meeting people in person or going to like the movies with your friends. I go to movies and I see a lot of young people like who are going to movies, and they show up in a friends group that's could be 6-7 strong. And so I think it's important that we do give credit where it's due. A lot of Gen Zers are keeping the lights on in movie theaters, especially smaller town movie theaters, where if they weren't showing up, then there wouldn't be enough foot traffic for those theaters to survive. Yeah, strangers is just someone you haven't met yet, just, obviously use your best judgment, Tony. Imagine being 6 or 7 years old watching The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Yeah. On the big screen though, that would be interesting. YouTube is going nuts. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm gonna see if I can fix that. Sometimes like YouTube can be really horrendous with that stuff. So if you guys are getting really annoyed by the ads, I'll work on that. Maybe I'm sure there's a way for me to turn that off. The crackling static. Is that on my audio? Let me see what's going on with the audio. Yeah, I'll see if I can fix the audio. I apologize for that. Again, sorry, technical issues today. I'm gonna see if I can make it work, if it's or if it stays this way. But yeah, I mean, hopefully by tomorrow I'll have it figured out. Like I said, today's a bit of a struggle against the system. But hey, speaking of the movies, like I mentioned a moment ago, Netflix's Netflix, while they're not buying, of course, Warner Brothers, they're also making less movies. Their original film output is, in quarter one of this year is at an 8-year low. They haven't put out fewer movies in like, I think since like 2023 in the first quarter of the year. They have a few big ones coming out as the year goes on. But it looks like overall Netflix is not just, throwing all kinds of shit at us like they used to, at least not at the beginning of this year. For example, in quarter one of 2022, Netflix released 50 original films that debuted on the platform. In the years since, they have decreased substantially. 39 in the first quarter of 2023, 35 in the same time frame in 2024, 34 last year, and then this year Netflix has only released 23 original films. Now, of course, part of this has to do with the fact that Netflix usually what they end up. I mean, they have the Narnia movie coming out later this year and a bunch of other big ones. But Netflix goes to these film festivals, and the film festival circuit really picks up on the second half of the year. They go license a bunch of movies, and then they put them on Netflix. Now, obviously, you would imagine they'd license a lot of them last year to put them in theaters this year, but it looks like they didn't get as many as they used to. So maybe this we'll see if things change, but I don't think this is like the end of the world. This just means that there's just less right now. I'm not too worried about this. Oh, it's not just every YouTube channel. Okay, all right, okay. Well, at least it's not just an us problem. Anyway, yeah, there is a third Enola movie, Enola Holmes, like the one. What's her name? Stranger Things. Somebody will tell me. The Enola Holmes movie that isn't Henry Cavill in those? They're making a third one, right? So that's coming out this year. And of course, I think what's his name? Brad Bird's got a sci-fi film called Gunn that's coming out this year. Also, David Fincher's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood sequel is coming out later this year. Of course, they put out a little theater at the Super Bowl. But yeah, I mean, there's some big ones coming. I mean, Charlize Theron has got a movie coming out called Apex. So there's a bunch. Yeah, Millie Bobby Brown. Yeah, Enola Holmes 3 is on the horizon. Here Comes the Flood with Denzel Washington and Robert Pattinson. Then they got a Robert De Niro-led thriller called The Whisper Man from Agbo. Oh, God, it's the Russo brothers. I don't know if that's going to be good. But, Netflix has got a few big ones. I mean, they also just got Thrash, which... that's the name of the movie, Thrash. It's similar to what happened with K-Pop Demon Hunters. It's a movie that Sony made. Initially thought they were going to put it in theaters, but then Netflix was like, we'd buy it off of you. And Sony wasn't really sure if it was going to do very well at the box office. So Netflix ended up putting it in, on their streaming service. And of course, K-Pop Demon Hunters went on to win Oscars and all that. So, and now they got a whole franchise, but Netflix basically has the rights to it because Sony just didn't have the balls to put it out in movie theaters. So we'll see if Thrash ends up becoming one of those where Netflix picks it up and makes it a huge hit, and then Sony might stop, with following the same patterns and same routines. But anyway, we shall see. I just thought it was interesting to point that out. Enola is a fun franchise. Yes, Millie Bobby Brown, Bon Jovi the first. Yeah, and Henry Cavill. Yep. Thank you for pointing that out to me in the chat. Let's see. Gen Zers also have physical media. I can confirm, yes, we do. Yeah, I love physical media. I mean, I'm not a Gen Zer, but I guess so that doesn't really count. But I have a bunch of Blu-rays. I actually have. What I usually do is I collect them in batches. Because sometimes unless you're getting like one of those things that's going to be like out of stock for a while, unless you get your hands on a pre-order, I try to get them in batches, and then I'll just build up a collection on an annual basis. I usually collect at least a dozen movies a year. Sometimes there's been fewer, but post-pandemic years there wasn't as many movies that I wanted on Blu-ray. But I mean, even now, like with streaming, movies, even with the highest quality they can give you, the bitrate will still be lower. The overall quality would still be, I mean, it's most of the time it's not perceivable, but sometimes it is. So, and I have a good home theater system, and I've got a 4K TV and all that jazz, Dolby Vision, Dolby Atmos. So I'm like, for me, a Blu-ray is definitely worth the money. And also, like, you don't have to then worry about like if the streaming service takes it off and then you have to go looking for it somewhere. So yeah. Enterprising saying, I wonder how Skydance will handle their animation hubs. Once they merge with WB, they have to figure out what to do with Nickelodeon Animation, Warner Brothers Animation, Skydance Animation, Adult Swim, and Toonami. Yeah, I think they're going to probably put it all under John Lasseter because he's the one leading Skydance Animation. He used to be at Pixar during his heyday, including like, the OG Toy Story days. So my guess would be that John Lasseter ends up being in charge of everything, kind of like what they did at Universal when they bought DreamWorks Animation. They put it all under Illumination Illumination, which Illumination is like, the studio that makes all the Despicable Me movies and Minions, and they're of course the highest performing animation studio that I have at Universal. So they just kind of combined like the I forget his name. It's like a French name, something Renault, I think. He's in charge of basically all animation labels at Universal, including Illumination and DreamWorks Animation. So I think that's going to happen here. Like John Lasseter, formerly of Pixar, currently of Skydance Animation, is going to likely end up being in charge of Warner Brothers Animation, which just went through a whole restructure and have a new boss. But he probably will have to report into John Lasseter, which I don't think is a bad thing at all. So anyway. Yeah, and the gray looks good. That looks really awesome. Thank you, Tony, for that. We talked about the trailer. We're going to be reviewing the movie when it comes out. Filmology is saying, crazy how we show skepticism over anything non-MCU when it comes to the Russo brothers. Like, come on, can we get something? I know. Well, but that's the thing, though. Like, I wouldn't be showing skepticism if it wasn't for, there being a reason to be skeptical. Like, the Agbo brothers, the Russo brothers have just, between the Electric State, the Gray Man, I mean, I think name movie here, like they just haven't produced anything good outside of the MCU. It just seems like the only times things work for them as movie directors is when they got Kevin Feige over their shoulders. So until they prove us otherwise, I think the skepticism is warranted. Yeah, I do hope that Highlander makes a shit ton of money for Amazon and then they can rub it in Lionsgate's face. Although, to be fair, I mean, Lionsgate has been going through some, financial squeeze because of a bunch of bad decisions in the past year or two. So as a result of that, I'm not surprised that they were like, we are not able to give this movie the budget that it needs and deserves, and then that's why they handed it off to United Artists, which is the newly revived label that Amazon MGM has as like their prestige label. So yeah, but I mean, Highlander is going to be an interesting watch. The behind the scenes set photos are certainly very fun to look at. Yeah, the Once Upon a Time sequel will be fun. Animation was gotta be, yes, it was. I mean, they completely reorganized Warner Brothers Animation, but at least they did the work. So what's there now is gonna be easier to streamline it or like merge it under Skydance Animation whenever that happens, if that happens. Yeah, Henry Cavill is awesome. King of the Nerds. He could be a good Magneto. He could be a good Magneto, actually. Yeah. Yeah, it's not blurry anymore. Thank you. I fixed it, hopefully. MTG saying Electric State makes me worried for Avengers Dooms. Hey, dude, me too, brother. Me too. I don't really know if that's going to have as much of an impact because, again, the Russo brothers have always done well under Kevin Feige's, oversight, if you want to call it that, as a producer of these movies in Marvel. It just seems to be when they do their own thing, when they don't have somebody giving them like a sandbox to play in. Therefore, like they're just like, oh, we get to make all the decisions. Like nobody's telling us we can't do this, can't do that, only can do this. I think that's when they get into trouble with like stuff like the Electric State. But I think Avengers Doomsday won't have that problem because Kevin Feige's there to make sure they don't have that problem. Enterprising saying if Warner Brothers becomes a better competitor in animation, there is some maybe there's some bright spots. Yeah. I mean, look, they have the IP. I think that's again what I bet you they're gonna make it a bigger focus because you look at like Disney making the most money at the box office every year, seemingly pretty much I think minus 1 year before the pandemic and since the pandemic they've been the highest grossing movie studio at the box office for like 8 out of the last 10 years or something, maybe even 9 out of 10. It's kind of crazy, ridiculous, but like the animated movies are a big part of it. Even last year's Zootopia 2, Inside Out 2, Moana 2. Am I missing any? I mean, I feel like Disney every year has like 2 or 3 just animated primarily kids movies that make $1 billion or somewhere close to it. If Warner Brothers Skydance Animation can put out similar stuff, and they've got John Lasseter, who used to be at Pixar, that would be a big part of the equation of like making enough money to justify the merger. But yeah, you know what? We'll see. We will see. That's still a long ways to go. Yeah. So my hope is that they figure it out. How will that affect Skydance's contracts with Netflix? Yes. Okay. So the current contracts that are in place, they'll honor them until they expire, and then from then on, they'll see if they want to renew them or not. Because I mean, ultimately, Paramount still will be working with external. They'll still, like David Ellison said this. They're not gonna stop producing content for other studios or streaming services or networks. Like for example, Abbott Elementary airs on ABC, produced by Warner Brothers Television. They also make some stuff for Netflix and other outlets. So I don't think they're gonna stop doing that. But in some cases, like with maybe let's say animation, I know Skydance puts out a bunch of stuff in animation that goes to Netflix. I think they also work with Apple, and they might not renew those deals if they feel like they just can redirect that output to in-house studios or putting it out in theatrically themselves. But it's all driven by money, like how whatever makes them the most money, whatever makes the most sense. I think Looney Tunes will probably be one of the big cornerstones of any animation studio, whatever the name is going to be of the combined entity post merger. Looney Tunes, maybe more Tom and Jerry. I think David Zaslav definitely kind of dropped the ball on those. Although again, it's hard to deny, like when you look at the box office for the Tom and Jerry movie, it wasn't really that high, but it was enough to justify the investment that Ketchup Entertainment made on that. So I don't know. We'll see what they do with those older IPs. Yeah, 2027 will be a banger year. There's a lot of big ones coming out next year. A lot of big movies. I mean, Highlander, Lord of the Rings. You got the Batman Part 2, Man of Tomorrow, Secret Wars. Not Spider-Man. What's the? No, there's no other Marvel movie. But like, there's a bunch of. I mean, you have Fast Forever. So. Wolfenmology, we'll talk about more of the Supergirl marketing later. But yeah, I mean, the marketing hasn't been as strong as Superman, but also is because they haven't been putting as much money behind that movie as they did behind Superman. So I think that kind of lines up. But still, I mean, the movie will, as long as the movie is profitable and it's received well by audiences and critics, that's all we really care for. That's all you can ask for, really. Universal distributed, if not produced, a live action Flintstones movie. Yeah, I mean, it's not it's not the farther back you go in Hollywood time, especially like 80s and 90s, it's not uncommon to see like Warner Brothers owns the IP, but Universal released the movie. Sometimes it's a matter of like you just didn't want to release it internationally. For example, Amazon MGM didn't have their international distribution set up when Project Hail Mary released, so Sony released it internationally and they released it domestically. Like Amazon MGM themselves put it out domestically in North America. Everywhere else, Sony put it out. But moving forward, most of their movies will be distributed by themselves, once that contract with Sony runs out, because they're building up their own, in-house international distribution infrastructure. So, yeah. 2007 was a big year for franchise movies. Yeah, I mean, was it the first time? Oh yeah, no, 2027 will be the first time. Yeah, I think I read that as 2007, but you're saying 2027. It will be the first time ever that we'll have a Batman and a Superman movie coming out in the same calendar year. But yeah, you know what? Speaking of the movies, let's talk about Netflix some more, shall we? I know I mentioned this the other day. I won't spend too much time on this. I just wanted to kind of bring this up to you guys because, again, The Wrap is doing a good job of covering this. And remember how there was a court in Rome, in Italy, that ruled against Netflix's price hikes, calling them illegal? Well, this article here does a good job of basically asking the question, will rest of the European Union follow suit? Because it could become a really big risk to Netflix's entire pricing model, and that affects their revenue quite a bit because Europe has a significant subscriber base. They make up like almost 20% of Netflix's overall subscriber numbers. So if other countries start doing, I mean, and they have a few other countries who already, have similar court cases against Netflix about the what are considered illegal price hikes in Europe. If those kind of coalesce into like a European Union action, which includes every country in the European Union, then that could be a significant problem for Netflix. It's a real legal risk for them. I believe we mentioned the other day Germany, Netherlands are a couple of the other countries. Poland, I think, is another country that already has similar consumer protection groups that are suing Netflix. Spain is another one. So yeah, I mean, it could be interesting because like the case in Poland could fine them for potentially up to 10% of their annual turnover in that country, which is a significant amount. So basically this article is pointing out that Italian court ruling against Netflix is not a one and done situation. This could lead to, like I mentioned the other day, a bit of a snowball effect that could have a real impact on Netflix's bottom line, which I hope that this works out. It doesn't really impact a lot of what might happen in the US, because the US consumer protection laws are way less in favorable to the consumers, surprise, surprise. So, it doesn't give me hope that things are going to change in the US, or my Netflix bill is going to go down in the US, but at least it's something. It's a glimmer of hope, and maybe in the future we'll feel the impacts of that in the US as well. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Anyway, let's keep going here. I'm gonna move past this article. I wanted to kind of point out something. This was interesting. Again, another thing in the wrap. They were pointing out how they have this a special screen share chart that they keep track of. They work on this with Screen Engine, and basically it tracks like what's the social media awareness of movies and other TV shows and stuff. Now we went and looked at this, I think a few days ago. John and I were looking at it, and Super Mario had just entered the chart. Well, now the most recent chart has Super Mario Galaxy at the top, with 5.57% of mentions that they're tracking all being about Super Mario Galaxy. Then you got Project Hail Mary, rightfully so. The Pit, which is heading close to its season finale, so that's pretty much up there. Stranger Things has pretty good lasting power. Then you got a bunch of sports stuff: Spider-Man Brand New Day, Mandalorian and Grogu, Michael, we talked about the other day, started to hit the charts, still sitting at number 9. And then WrestleMania 42 coming in at number 10. Of course, WrestleMania is about a week and some change away, so that makes sense. So I mean, I just wanted to point this out. Like, if you hear people talking about all of these things, then these are the top 10 things that most people on the internet are currently talking about. I mean, obviously, I think Avengers Doomsday was on this for a while, but like seems to have kind of dropped out of the top 10 because there hasn't been a ton of like official marketing materials about it recently. But anyway, let's keep going. Speaking of Project Hail Mary, it looks like the Artemis 2 astronauts actually got a chance to watch the movie before going to space. When they do their pre-launch quarantine, which takes a little bit of time, they were kind of set up in this in this room where they got to sit there and just watch the movie. And of course, then it wasn't more than a couple of days ago where they broke the record for having for humans having traveled farther than anybody else before from the Earth, because they went to the far side of the moon, and they went farther than even Apollo 13 went, and so no humans had ever gone that far. And of course, all 4 of them got to watch a movie as amazing as Project Hail Mary, which is very, of course, uplifting for somebody who's about to go into space. And they're not quite going there to save the galaxy, but they got to hear this special message from Ryan Gosling before they saw the movie, and it was partly wishing them well on their mission, which just gives me all the good feelings, because this is great stuff. I mean, and then of course they were taking photos of the Earth. We've had some beautiful images coming in from this mission. So yeah, I mean, I've been a space nerd all my life, and I just love how all these things are coming together at the perfect time. Whether it's watching Project Hail Mary, seeing humans working their way slowly back, ever so slowly back to the moon, but yeah, this is great stuff. Space Kitty was supervising. Yeah, I'm sure she was. All right, let's keep on going here. You guys watched that Mortal Kombat 2 trailer? Because I did. And Scorpion, of course, was only one part of it. Him facing off against the reborn Sub-Zero, which, of course, it's not the first time we've heard or seen that. That was pretty epic. It was pretty epic. Not only did we get an amazing trailer, which keeps getting me just more and more hyped about this movie, and the fact that they're using more and more of the classic 90s soundtrack, the Mortal Kombat, it's literal goosebumps right now just doing it. I mean, I'm not gonna roll up my sleeve to show you my goosebumps, but yeah. And then of course, tickets are now on sale for the movie. They released all these specialty posters for like all the premium formats, the premium large formats that they call them. You got 40x, pretty good poster for 40x. The ScreenX poster, I think, is pretty gosh darn cool. Again, Johnny Cage is at the peak at the right center stage. I saw the trailer. I mean, there's a new IMAX poster. I like the IMAX poster. That looks pretty gosh darn sick. Yeah, this is gonna be one of the most fun movies that comes out this year. This comes out the week after The Devil Wears Prada. So I'm excited to go, to the movies quite a bit more this summer. And, pretty much every week we'll have a big movie coming out. Maybe even 2 big movies coming out. So, yeah. And then, of course, we also got some news about the upcoming Robert Eggers movie, Werewolf. And we have now a bit of an idea of not only when are we going to get to see more from the movie, but of course the first trailer. John is very excited about this. Of course, Craven himself, Aaron Taylor Johnson, is the lead of this film. But Cryptic 4K Qual, who was pretty reliable with their scoops on when trailers are being released, they mentioned recently on X, I believe, they said that currently the first teaser trailer is being prepared for the movie, and it should be with us by next month. So it looks like you won't have to wait too long. In fact, the guess right now is that they're going to attach the trailer for Werewolf right ahead of Obsession, which is from Curry Barker, that comes out on May 15th. It's not really confirmed whether that's when we're going to get to see it. It's not confirmed whether we get to see it in theaters first and then we get to see it online, or if they're going to release it online and then that weekend you can go see it in a movie theater if you go to see Obsession. But and we also have some set photos. You got Willem Dafoe in this movie. Ralph Ineson is in this movie. Lily Rose Depp is in this movie. They all look wild, and very, very, much Robert Eggers looking movie, I have to say. But yeah, this looks great. Of course, these photos are from, Bournemouth near Farnham in England. So, they've been filming this movie. I think actually not too long ago they wrapped on this film. So, yeah, it looks like the trailer is not that far behind. So I'm excited for this. I know John is probably way more excited than I am, but I'm excited to see what this turns into. I'm always down for a good Robert Eggers movie. I mean, the guy has not missed in quite some time, so I'm down. Yeah. Went from hunting animals to being a wild animal. Right. Yes. Aaron Taylor Johnson. Quite the journey. Quite the journey indeed. Yeah. Anyway, let's keep going. We got a couple more topics here for Movie Talk Madness. There was this report in the wrap, and this has to do with Avatar. So we're talking about blue people for a bit. It looks like Disney insiders, some people who work at Disney, they didn't name them in this report. They've sort of chimed in on the whole discourse, let's call it, around whether Avatar is actually going to get a fourth and a fifth movie, because 3 movies in, you're looking at declining profits at this point, because obviously we talked about Fire and Ash was the first movie in the franchise to not make $2 billion. It made 1.4 billion. But it's kind of weird to think, I mean, and they pointed out in the headline here, that a movie franchise that has all together with its 3 movies made $6.7 billion, and even its lowest grossing movie has made $1.4 billion, B for billion, that they're not going to get a sequel. Like, it goes to show you that maybe like the amount of money Disney has put into these movies, it must be really, really high for them to be like 1.4 billion isn't enough for us to greenlight a sequel, right? Like, I feel like if the next Batman movie made 1.4 billion, David Ellison will be like, so Matt Reeves, are you working on that script for the 3rd movie? You got any ideas? Where's your co-writer? Like, are you gonna get on it now? Like, do you want me to like buy you like an all paid expense retreat so you can work on this for the next 3 months? When are we getting the Batman Part 3? It's like, for any other franchise, like, the studios will be rushing to greenlight a sequel. But of course, with Avatar, things have been a little bit different. These movies are very expensive to make. But Disney insiders have, of course, just weighed in on this, because, we've talked about how James Cameron has mentioned that he wasn't super sure if they're going to make a 4th or a 5th movie, although he's already sort of planned out the next couple of movies. The scripts are already written. And in fact, they I think there was a recent report where they mentioned that 22% of Avatar 4 has already been shot, which is a very specific number, but still, like, that's about a quarter of the movie's already been shot. So I gotta imagine that helps maybe delay some of the cost that made Fire and Ash so expensive. But this is what James Cameron recently pointed out. He said, look, to be perfectly clear, we haven't even made a decision if you're going forward right now. But should I do that, I'd say that's likely, but not 100%. But we will learn from lessons from all 3 films. Now, I'm going to go into this comicbook.com article, because comicbookmovie.com kind of took the quotes from the Wrap article and kind of condensed them, so it's easier to kind of walk through. And James Cameron, ultimately, what he ended up saying was like, look, Disney's not giving up on Pandora, but if we are going to do this, we have to make them cheaper and shorter. And you know what? I agree with them. Like cheaper, yes. I mean, obviously, the cheaper you make it, the less money you need to make for the movie to be profitable. But also, like, I feel like Fire and Ash, you could really feel the time, the running time of the movie, and it really felt like in a lot of ways the plot points were regurgitating what happened in the second movie. And it was also like the shortest gap between any two movies in this franchise. So I think the novelty of like, oh, let's go see an Avatar movie, this Avatar movie we have to see because the next one might be a decade away. You didn't have that feeling. So I think that was definitely part of it. Now, of course, the trade did speak to a member of the Avatar team, and they said it's bullshit that the movie made 1.5 billion and people like are acting like it's Ishtar. Yeah, Ishtar. Was this Philip Seymour Hoffman movie? Or no, Dustin Hoffman. It was a Dustin Hoffman movie. Uh, wow, that's a throwback. But anyway, this person said that's not a guarantee that they're all going to make $2 billion. The trilogy has made, like I mentioned earlier, $6.7 billion, which basically averages out, to over $2 billion a movie. Like that's, yeah, I mean, why would you not greenlight a fourth film? Like, it's just crazy. Like, they've clearly made so much money on this franchise. And another insider that they quoted in the Wrap article said that there was no anticipation for Fire and Ash. And they pointed to the marketing, saying they literally use at Disney the same playbook as they did for The Way of Water. And by not making Fire and Ash feel more like an event movie, it just crippled the movie's chances of making money. I, on the other hand, think it had to do with the fact that the third movie very much felt like it was a rehash of what we saw in the second one, except that it just added the fire Navi into it, like, oh, there's a fire tribe now. And they're evil Navi, like, they literally are evil. And it's like, okay, great. Everything else is the same. Like, the same villain it still is there. He's still going after Jake Sully's family. Maybe they'll kill another kid this time, or I don't know. Like, there wasn't really a whole lot in this movie. I personally don't think Fire and Ash really stood out. It doesn't matter how differently you would have marketed it. It just wasn't different enough, But that being said, also in this report, they pointed out that there is a Pandora attraction at the Disneyland in California, and actually no, there is. It's not the one in California. They have one in Florida, I think. And then they were looking to add a Pandora land in the Disneyland in California, but there are whispers, this is not confirmed, that Disney might be changing plans, and instead of bringing Pandora to Disneyland, they might just instead switch over and bring a Zootopia attraction instead, because of course Zootopia 2 made more money than Fire and Ash did. So like Avatar Fire and Ash made 1.4 billion, but Zootopia 2 made 1.8 billion. It became the highest grossing animated movie of all time made by Hollywood. I mean, if you don't count Ninja 2, then it is the highest grossing animated movie of all time. And it outgrossed an Avatar movie. Like, you wouldn't think that would be the case a few years ago, that a Zootopia movie would make more money than an Avatar movie, but it did. So, that all being said, Disney still has the December 2029 and December 2031 dates reserved for the Avatar 4 and 5. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, the scripts are ready, and they've already shot a portion of the next movie, and obviously the cast is contracted to be returned for those films, and James Cameron most likely just probably wants to take a bit of a break before he gets back to doing these movies. But then again, he's ticking up in age, so I'd imagine that he probably wants to get these movies and out of the way behind him, so he can focus on other projects on a long-term basis. But we'll see. I mean, one of the things that was pointed out in this article was that these next two movies, and James Cameron has mentioned this before, Avatar 4 and 5 are going to be radically different from Fire and Ash, as kind of like almost the analogy being the first Star Wars movie, how different it was to Empire Strikes Back, which I don't know how far that analogy carries, but still it looks like they're gonna go in a different direction. So yeah, I mean, look, James Cameron, according to this one other team member who worked on these Avatar movies, who clearly believes in James Cameron, they said this time I could see James Cameron being like, I'm on a mission. I believe unequivocally that he will finish his 5-film saga. Never bet against JC. So yeah, I mean, look, I trust James Cameron that if he does go ahead with the 4th and 5th movies, Disney does greenlight them, that it will happen and they will make plenty of money. What will be particularly worrying is if the 4th movie makes less than $1 billion. I don't think that would be the case. Chances are we'll have a bigger gap between the 3rd and the 4th movie, because James Cameron probably wants to go do at least one other thing in the meantime. but that all being said, you know, I just hope that they go in a different direction with the story, because the third movie definitely felt repetitive and redundant to what we saw in the second. I personally wouldn't be very excited to go see a fourth movie. It just felt like, oh, we're doing the whole Sully clan versus, evil general who's in an avatar body again. Like, it's just, we have been there, done that like twice now, like or three times. Like, let's move on, let's find a new villain for this franchise. Let's get back to Earth, which is what they've always promised is where the movie series will eventually, end up. So yeah, like I wanna see more Avatar movies, but only, if they really chart new territory. Like I'm just kind of tired of seeing it feels like the same movie over and over again. And I think a lot of people feel the same way. But we'll just have to wait and see, how all that turns out. Obviously, I think Disney probably still is very much, into the idea of making more Avatar films, considering like even, with the high cost, 1.4 billion must mean they at least made some profit. So we'll see. Yeah, let's take the Na'vi off world. That would be interesting. Like if the Na'vi like took one of those human ships and decided to travel the other direction and go to Earth, maybe that could be interesting. But anyway, let's keep going. We still have a lot more show to get into, so let's get into some MCU Weekly, shall we? The very first thing I want to talk about, and you guys, I'm sure, saw this trailer. If you didn't see the Mortal Kombat trailer, I bet you watched the Punisher One Last Kill trailer, which of course stars John Bernthal, coming back in to play the Punisher once more, and it looks like now that a lot of how he wrote this, because he wrote this himself, he's a producer on there, and of course he's acting in the project himself. He was talking about how the Welcome Back Frank storyline had a really big influence on the special presentation, and I really like where he's going with this. I mean, if you guys read this, of course, they just did like a 12-issue story arc that was released as a Marvel premiere collection, or in that format, and that featured a foreword by John Bernthal talking about his perception of the character of Frank Castle, and this is like a long 5-paragraph thing, that you can, I mean, if you get yourself a copy of this, then I'm sure you can read it for yourself. I'm just gonna read the last bit of this, and then I'm gonna talk about the trailer. So he finishes off this foreword by saying, "I'm grateful to everyone who created this character and gave me the opportunity to play him. Bringing Frank Castle to life has been one of the great honors of my career. Not because of what it's done for me, but because of what this character means to so many people." Yeah. And then, of course, we got a brief synopsis for the special presentation that says, as Frank Castle searches for meaning beyond revenge, an unexpected force pulls him back into the fight. This is honestly, as somebody who hasn't, really been keeping up with the Punisher side of things. I mean, I still am behind on Daredevil Born Again, but I gotta be honest with you, like, I just want to jump into this no matter where I am in the continuity of these characters. I want to watch this thing, because this trailer was awesome. This trailer was about as good for me as the Spider-Man trailer. It just really goes to show you that Frank Castle is going to be going through it, not just with the villains, Manucci and all those things, but he's going to be going through it on a personal level. I like myself a good psychological thriller sort of a vibe, and holy cow, this is, I mean, it's not quite Memento, or what's the other I'm thinking of a different Christopher Nolan. Is Memento the one with, I think that's the one where yeah, Guy Pearce. It's giving me some of those vibes where he's almost like he's haunted by the ghosts of his own past, and then the trailer very heavily implies, and if you look at the foreword that he wrote for Welcome Back Frank, the Marvel comic that they just republished in a special collection, he talks about how, like, he's really got a new perspective on the character now, and he's like, it's this protective nature that Frank Castle has. Like, and clearly, if you watch the trailer, a lot of the trailer focuses on Frank Castle trying to seemingly protect this girl who's in some kind of a situation. So, this is somebody who he doesn't really know. Maybe gets to know her, and then over the course of the trailer and probably the special by way of that, you know, his mission is to just protect this girl, save her from whatever trouble she's in. And it doesn't seem like she's anybody he really personally knows all that well, but that's just who Frank Castle is. That's what makes him a hero, despite the darkness that he's been through and what he's trying to work out for himself. He's still able to, you know, just instinctually, you know, fight for justice. And I think that's the part which this trailer really, you know, struck me in a really good way. I watched this trailer like three times, like hit play. Oh, it ended. Hit play again. And yeah, I mean, he's definitely haunted by his past. Yeah, I mean, Fight Club. Yeah, Fight Club is definitely a good comparison to, like, because you see that in this, like, especially the first half of the trailer. I love the idea. I absolutely love where this is going, and the fact that John Bernthal wrote this, produced it, and of course is starring in it. I'm excited, man, because it's also like, you look at this couldn't look any more different than the version of Punisher we were going to be getting in Spider-Man Brand New Day. And it's also quite different from what we got, at least on the surface, based on the trailer, you know, when he appeared in the last season of Daredevil Born Again. But obviously it's in the same continuity, because he's, you know, he escaped that prison that, yeah, PTSD is what he's suffering from. But like, he escaped that prison that Kingpin put him in at the end of the last season. I mean, well, we knew that already. You know, Daredevil helped him with that. But anyway, I'm excited to see where this goes. This was one of the highlights of my day. Like, this and the Mortal Kombat trailer definitely were two of my highlights of the day. But anyway, let's keep on going. So let's talk about Marvel Dimensions. They are releasing some variant covers to showcase some of the best Alex Ross artwork that I guess comicbookmovie.com has ever seen. So this September, Alex Ross reimagines the Marvel Universe in Marvel Dimensions, an all-new graphic novel from Marvel and Abrams Comic Arts, as part of their Marvel Arts line, which is set to release on September 1st. And of course, it features a bunch of classics that have been sort of, you know, turned into these timeless variant covers in the style of Alex Ross. So there you go. I mean, you got Spider-Man. I think this was in the header image for the article. There you go. You got some more X-Men characters. Or no, that's not, is that X? No, is that meant to be Ant-Man? Anyway, let's see. We got the Avengers. Oh yeah, this looks really good. I like the look of this. Just like the pencil drawn nature of this. That's Black Widow right there. I stared at this for a while for sure. You got the Human Torch in there. The Captain America one definitely is really cool. Like, I feel like we never quite got this version of the Captain America costume in the movies outside of maybe like the first one. So I wouldn't mind returning to this. Like, it just looks really cool in the comic book world. But anyway, let's see. Yeah, more Black Panther. You got Daredevil. That looks really cool. Very, very classic. Gives me the Daredevil costume vibes from the Ben Affleck movie a little bit. A little bit of Daredevil booty there as well. Doctor Strange. I thought this was actually quite a bit of a standout. I love the colors here, and you see that in the background there as well. The imagery is fantastic. Then you got, speaking of fantastic, the Fantastic Four. Yeah, I think some of these are just like really they just lend themselves to the Alex Ross style of art. He is the man. Alex Ross is the GOAT. I agree with you guys 100%. Yeah. By the way, yeah, the Punisher logo is finally the full skull, not the half skull. Yes. They're slowly working their way back to the classic costume and the symbology of the characters. So yeah. Yep. No, I think we're eventually gonna get in Daredevil Born Again that classic Daredevil suit with the big double Ds. They're working towards that. Slowly but surely they're getting back to it. The Silver Surfer was actually also pretty fantastic. Pardon the pun. The more classic the version of the Silver Surfer character as opposed to the Shara Ball that we got in the new movie. Yeah, very much looking like the one that we got in the Fox movies. Iron Man, look at that. That's a more classic look at Iron Man. I don't think we're gonna get this version of the Iron Man costume in the movies ever, unless it's like a variant in Secret Wars or something like that. But loving the look here. Oh god, this was one of my favorites. Look at this. Holy cow. Just the image, the Infernal Hulk. Like, the imagery here is amazing. This is the Hulk we need in the MCU. And we so dearly miss. Then Thor. Oh god, yeah, it's so good. Holy shit, this is so good. Classic Thor. Yeah, I mean, Alex Ross is so good. So fucking good. Yeah. I mean, Wolverine, oh yeah, that's I can just easily imagine that being like the uh, Deadpool Wolverine version of Hugh Jackman Wolverine, the uncanny X-Men. Yeah, this artwork is, and there you go. You got the Wolverine by himself. Yep, perfect, perfect. Then you got the Phoenix Force. Yeah, I bet you Marvel's gonna give us more of that classic costume when we do get Jean Grey. Then you got Namor. Of course, we already have Namor in the MCU, but that looks nice. So yeah, I mean, these are all going on. I mean, most of them are going on sale on the 3rd of June, then some of them go on sale on the 10th of June. So if you want to collect these, Avengers Armageddon goes on sale the 3rd of June alongside Doctor Strange #7, Fantastic Four #12, and then a week later, Mortal Thor, X-Men 31 go on sale, and then the 17th you get Amazing Spider-Man, X-Men United, then Captain America and Infernal Hulk come out the week after, then you got the Amazing Spider-Man #32, and then so on and so forth. You know, this is going to be going on well into August. So yeah, I mean, the Daredevil one comes out August 12th, so I'll be waiting for that. That one looks nice. Yeah, Captain America #13. That's another one I would like to get my hands on. So yeah, I mean, what do you guys think about these covers? I mean, Alex Ross does not miss, and damn, these look great. Look at that classic webbing in the costume. We saw that in Far From Home. I think it was that version of Spider-Man suit. But anyway, let's get back. Speaking of the X-Men, Jake Schreier recently was talking to Collider about his inspiration for the new movie that he's working on, the X-Men movie in the MCU. It turns out he's taking a lot of inspiration from Chris Claremont's comic run of the X-Men. So this is what Schreier was saying. I've just been digging into so many of the old comics and the entire Claremont run, and just going through stuff and really trying to think about what can we do well that feels new and feels different and that hasn't been done well before. Obviously, there's such an incredible cinematic tradition of these comics, but what can we do and how can we put our own spin on that, or on what that is? A bit of a nothing burger update, but I do appreciate that they're trying to put an emphasis on doing things differently, because like, we're not going to be hopefully getting the same stories that we've been told like 20 times before in the Fox era of X-Men, right? We talked about this the other day. Me swearing makes you giggle? Okay, I'll swear more then. Enterprising saying Crank 2 comes to mind when I see the Punisher One Last Kill trailer, but more dramatic. Yes, that's another great example. Another great example. Enterprising saying just do right by the X-Men. Yeah. I mean, look, but like what they did with the Fantastic Four gives me hope, right? It really does. If that's what they're capable of, and they really put their mind to it, then I mean, hopefully, they didn't, take any shortcuts with the Fantastic Four. They went about it the hard way, even taking them out of the primary timeline, the mainline MCU stories, the 616. So if they can do something similar, I mean, chances are they won't like make it another multiverse thing, because obviously the multiverse hopefully will be behind us. But even if it isn't, I think they're gonna build up the X-Men from the ground up. So yeah, and then Chris Claremont run was great. A lot of people love it. So I know that Jake Schreier is probably not able to talk about any details, so it's understandable that he's sort of giving us this very generic perspective. But still, the intention to do something new and different that we haven't seen from 2 decades of X-Men movies under Fox's purview, that I think is a great place to start at the very least, right? So I'm excited to see where they take this, and hopefully we'll get a ton more updates in the weeks and months to come as they keep working on the movie. But speaking of, I mean, the Beef creator Lee Sung Jin, he's the one who's working on the X-Men reboot script, and he recently talked about how he's honored to be working on that project, saying no matter how much you got going on, you have to say yes to an opportunity like this, which of course you do. Of course you do. I mean, come on. I know, like, they just have they're working on a 2nd season of Beef, so that show is still running. And so like Lee Sung Jin is definitely a busy person, but if you get offered to write the script for the next X-Men movie, the Marvel X-Men movie and the MCU, like, why the hell would you not jump at that chance, right? He was of course talking about this, speaking of, at the season 2 premiere of Beef in Hollywood. So he was like, yeah, I mean, like, doesn't matter what else you got going on. If somebody comes at you, if Kevin Feige's like, you want to work on the script for my X-Men movie, you gotta be like, yeah, I'm down. I'll make it work with my schedule, right? I mean, I think he's got the right mindset. So at least he's enthusiastic Doesn't guarantee that we're gonna get a great X-Men movie, but it at least means that, you know, we've got a writer who's passionate about the X-Men. So yeah, I mean, exactly, who would turn that down? Tony. I wouldn't turn that down, and I probably know less about the X-Men than he does. So yeah, I'm excited for the writing team on it at least. I mean, if you've ever seen Beef on Netflix, great show, great show. It's not for everybody, but I love season one. Excited to see season two, which just had its premiere. So if it's the same guy working on the X-Men movies, then count me in. All right, let's keep on going here. We have one more segment before we get to the quick hits, and then we get to DC right after that. So let's talk about some TV talk terror. I got Georgie here threatening me with a good time. Oh, come on, over here, move over. Let's go. Come on. Over there. You're just gonna stand. Okay. She's literally standing on top of the camera. So if that gets knocked over, then that was by Georgie. But anyway, here we're talking about TV talk terror. So AMC networks. Remember those AMC networks? You know, where we got Breaking Bad and all, The Walking Dead and all those classic shows. Well, those AMC networks, they're rebranding to be called AMC Global Media. Why? Well, the CEO of the company, Kristen Dolan, has said that the change now reflects the ongoing transformation of their business into a global media and studio-driven company, with, of course, streaming as its leading source of domestic revenue. So I think it's reflective of the idea that they're more than just going to be an American company that makes things for the American market. And as a result of that, you know, changing their names from just being called AMC Networks to AMC Global Media, it makes sense. Is it the best thing they could have done in terms of naming names? I don't really think so, but it doesn't really matter. Most of us don't really care. So yeah. Anyway, I mean, I know AMC is sort of been expanding and they're doing other things, and the AMC Plus, I think it's called, is their streaming service, which is still pretty small in terms of subscriber base, but they are growing. So yeah, AMC Global Media, it makes sense. Anyway, speaking of AMC and Breaking Bad, Vince Gilligan just submitted Pluribus, the pilot of Pluribus, for the Emmys. Of course, it is about to be Emmy season, and the question becomes, will he finally win for writing or directing? Because famously, of course, he never got an Emmy for Breaking Bad, or his prequel spinoff Better Call Saul. And if the guy has been around for a lot longer than that. He built his reputation with the X-Files back in the 90s. So yeah, but this legendary showrunner and creator and executive producer has never got an Emmy. I've got 2 more Emmys than Vince Gilligan does, and yeah, it's surprising. Like, he's had 23 nominations. It's hard to argue that he's never he's been over. Actually, he's got no, never mind, I'm wrong. He has 4 wins. My bad. But you know what, 24 for 23 is not a great track record. So it's been a while since he won one. And yeah, I mean, the X-Files was legendary. Like, for one guy to have the X-Files, Breaking Bad, and Better Call Saul all on his resume, I mean, that's wild. That's wild. I mean, he won back-to-back trophies in 2013 and 2014, of course, for, when they split up Breaking Bad into 2 seasons, if you guys remember. And then, of course, he won in 2017 and 2020 for Better Call Saul. But I somehow misstated that earlier. I'm like, yeah, of course he won for that. But I mean, it seems like it's been forever now, because 2020 was still like 6 years ago. So yeah. Oh, hey, you gonna say hello to the people watching? Yeah. You gonna say hello? Yeah. Yeah. Are Emmys fixed? They're not fixed. They do give out a lot of them, though. So there's that. Oh, look, you're on camera. You gonna say hi, Georgie? You gonna say hi? Say hello to everybody. Yeah. Georgie's discovering the camera for the first time. She usually comes and sits here and looks at me, but this time she was looking directly at the camera. Yeah, wasn't that nice? Yeah, you're famous on the internet now. There we go. Vince Gilligan looking to get an Emmy for the first time in almost a decade. It's definitely overdue. I can't imagine, like, maybe, I don't know. I guess when the X-Files was on the air, he wasn't really a showrunner on the X-Files, so I guess maybe that's why he never got an Emmy for the X-Files. But anyway, I mean, Pluribus was one of the best shows I've seen this past year, so I wouldn't be surprised if it does win 1 or 2 trophies. But yeah, I mean, that's what cats usually do. They come and sit in front of you and they're like, pay attention to me. It's time to give me some attention. Like, she's sitting now right next to the laptop, and she's asking for more of my attention. But you know what? The show's not over yet, because we got quick hits to do. So let's get into those quick hits. Right, Georgie? You're going to do some quick hits with us? Okay. So let's talk about Metal Gear Solid, everybody. We literally were talking about this yesterday. I think one of you guys asked, like, is there a Metal Gear Solid movie in the works? And I was like, yeah, didn't we hear something about that a while ago? And well, here you go. Now we have official news that a Metal Gear Solid movie is in the works from the guys who made the Final Destination movies recently. They have just inked a new first look deal with Sony. So yeah, Zach Lipovsky and Adam B. Stein, they have now I mean, they are two of the most in-demand filmmakers in town right now, in that being Hollywood, and Sony has now, of course, snapped them up, and they've given them a first look deal, which is pretty expansive, because not only does it cover like Metal Gear Solid, which they'll be working on, but it also covers pretty much any of studios, any of the other labels and IPs that they've got at the Sony studios. So this wouldn't be just for like Columbia Pictures movies. They could do something for Sony Animation. They can also, do something for PlayStation Studios. So yeah. Hey, thank you, watcher, for enjoying the stream while you were here, and we hope you have a good rest of your evening. Do hit the like button on the way out if you can. Hello, Angelica. Yeah, I know. I'm excited, dude. I thought there was another Metal Gear Solid thing already happening, but apparently not. I mean, I can't wait for this. I love the games, and I would love to see a movie. And it looks like we are finally getting one. So yeah, and you know what? I know that Sony's just been, we talked about it like earlier in the week, they've been restructuring so they can focus more on their PlayStation Studios IP, and this is definitely part of that. So we're getting a Metal Gear Solid movie. I mean, look, the Final Destination movie, the last one was, I think was like the biggest one. Bloodlines was like the biggest one in the franchise, or one of the biggest ever. So these guys are on a run, and they now have something else to work on, Metal Gear Solid. So I'm excited for that. Georgie, are you tired? You gonna go sleep on me? What's going on here? Her eyes are closing. It is late. Okay, so Melina Matsuka's, I hope I said that correct, but Melina Matsuka's is set to direct the Parable of the Sour adaptation at Warner Brothers. The sci-fi feature is based on Octavia E. Butler's highly acclaimed post-apocalyptic novel. The movie is set to take place on a post-apocalyptic Earth after the planet has been drastically altered by both climate change and social inequity. The book centers on Lauren Olamina, a young woman who can feel others' pain and takes a long journey in which she develops and learns about Earthseed, a religion based around the belief that God is change. Huh. That sounds interesting. It looks like Matsuka will direct and produce the adaptation through her company De La Revolution. So yeah, this looks interesting. I'm always down for a good sci-fi story, so we'll see how this turns out. Very, very interesting. All right. Rooster at HBO, the new Steve Carell comedy, just got renewed for season 2. Good stuff. You know what? I haven't seen the first season yet, but I'll be watching now, and certainly a little more at ease that we know that season 2 is on the way. So Wednesday is well on its way to season 3, and it just cast, of course, Lena Headey from Game of Thrones and stuff, and then you got Andrew McCarthy and James Lance. So adding 3 high-profile actors. Of course, Wednesday is one of the most high-profile shows going right now, so not a surprise that they've been able to like add in 3 not really all of them A-listers, but 3 very, very well-known, very talented actors to the group. Moving on. Nobody Wants This Season 3, speaking of Season 3s, has just now set a new cast for that upcoming season, which will include Sarah Silverman, Andrew Reynolds, and series creator Erin Foster herself, as well as a few others. So it looks like they've added 9 new cast members, according to Variety. Of course, Kayla Montero Mejia, who was most recently in The Studio and Abbott Elementary, as well as, of course, Sarah Silverman, I mentioned. They've all joined in recurring roles. They've also added 6 new guest stars. Avan Jogia, Purna Jagannathan, of course, who was in Desi Boys. Love that show. She's also in Lanterns. And then Sadie Sandler, who was in Happy Gilmore 2 and Roommates, Stephanie Koenig, who was an English teacher, if you saw that, and then Steven Weber, who was in Wings and Chicago Med. So Erin Foster, of course, is also, like I said, the series creator. She's going to cameo in the season as well. Moving on to the next thing, GTA 6 mission featuring famous rapper has been leaked. Just beware of the spoiler, because here it comes. The latest leak comes from veteran games journalist Hip Hop Gamer, who claims that there was a special side mission in GTA 6 involving a major rapper that left CM Punk bloody by accident. This appears to be a reference by American rapper Freddie Gibbs, who once left a professional wrestler wounded following an accident while shooting a scene for a movie last year. There you go. So it looks like Freddie Gibbs is going to be involved in a GTA 6 mission whenever the game actually comes out. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm looking forward to season 3 of either Wednesday or the other show that we're talking about. But let's keep on going. IDF. All right, let's keep rolling. We got a few more quickies to get into. Eve Hewson is set to star opposite Channing Tatum in Isle of Man from Amazon MGM Studios. That looks like a good pairing. I did love Channing Tatum in that Toys R Us movie. I forgot the name of it already, but that was a great film. Eve Hewson is set to star opposite, of course, Channing Tatum. Isle of Man, we talked about this not too long ago. It's set up at Amazon MGM Studios, and Reed Carolyn is set to direct the film. And of course, Brad Pitt's Plan B is one of the producers of the film. Carolyn, of course, also wrote the script for the movie. You know, this is, you know, of course, it's a racing related film, so that's why Brad Pitt's involved. Long before Formula One, World Endurance Racing, MotoGP, there was the Isle of Man TT as the world's oldest continuously running motorsport event. The TT remains a one-of-a-kind spectacle with no substitute and no equal, with riders pushing man and machine to the edge at nearly 200 miles per hour. The TT represents the pinnacle of sporting endeavor and the relentless pursuit of glory. Count me in. Take my money now. I'm in, all in. Let's do this thing. That's all I gotta say about that. And Deadline, I don't want to show your ads, so please get out of my way. Tom Felfrey has now joined Vanessa Kirby and Yahya Abdul-Mateen II in Apple's sci-fi thriller Liminal, which is being directed by Louis Leterrier, who just directed the last Fast and Furious movie, and he is also directing the next and last Fast Furious movie called Fast Forever. So in between that time, he's been working on this movie called Liminal, which is a sci-fi thriller. We talked about it before that, you know, Vanessa Kirby and Yahya Abdul-Mateen II are going to be two of the leads, but now you got Tom Felfrey also joining them. Of course, you might remember seeing him in HBO's show Task. So, you know, hot off that show, he's now signed a deal to star in this film. Of course, we don't know yet who he's going to be playing. We also don't really know much about the plot of the movie, but it is based on the AWA graphic novel Telepaths, which of course was written by Eisner Award-winning J. Michael Straczynski, and Steve Epting and Brian Reber. And it takes place in a world where a tenth of the population suddenly gains telepathic powers as a result of an electromagnetic disturbance. That sounds interesting. I'm genuinely interested in this. They keep adding a lot of good talent in this. I mean, anything that Yahya Abdul-Mateen II is in, I'm in on that, and Vanessa Kirby is on one hell of a streak right now. So, yeah, yep. Oh yeah, by the way, Tony, Wednesday season 3, you got Catherine Zeta-Jones, Winona Ryder, Eva Green, Lena Headey. Woo! The 90s movie fan in me is feeling hot right now. So, yeah, I mean, look, I hope this is better than the Fast films. I also hope the last Fast film is pretty good. But anyway, this looks interesting. Liminal. It's a good name at least. We'll see if the movie's good as well. Again, with these ads, Deadline, I don't want your ads. So Disney is, of course, laid off 1,000 employees in what's become the first round of cuts under new CEO Josh D'Amaro. Again, like I always say, it doesn't matter who was laid off or for what reason. Anytime people lose their jobs, their livelihoods, it's never a good thing. And Disney planning to lay off as many as 1,000 employees over the course of the next few months. It's not good. It turns out like this is very much part of them kind of reorganizing a little bit. Like, for example, in this article they mentioned specifically that Asad Ayaz recently got promoted to the role of Chief Marketing and Brand Officer, and so he now has a new plan to consolidate the marketing for their film, TV, and streaming operations and eliminate duplication. Basically what that means is eliminating jobs. There's one person that could do two people's jobs, so a lot of those 1,000 cuts are going to come to the marketing departments, which will be getting merged together. Disney didn't comment on this, but this is certainly still quite a few people less. Like 8,000 people were laid off in the most recent round of cuts, several rounds of cuts that Bob Iger implemented in the post-COVID era so that they could reorganize the company. So I guess 1,000 is better than 8,000, but still that's going to be 1,000 people losing their jobs. So I hope that they've been given good severance packages and they're able to find new roles. Especially in this economy, I would not want to be somebody who's getting laid off. It just sounds like a really, really rough experience. Been there, not a fan of it, wouldn't recommend it. So yeah. These people already work at Disney Enterprising, and it looks like they won't be soon. I also worked at Disney before. Like I said, I've been there, done that. I enjoyed the experience, not the being let go part of it. But anyway, Ana Huang's God of the Game English Premier League soccer romance book series has now set a 3-film adaptation at Amazon. So I feel like this is the heated rivalry effect, the Ted Lasso effect. You're getting more and more of these. It's a Premier League soccer romance book. It's now got a trilogy already guaranteed pretty much by Amazon. Gods of the Game. You know what? That sounds amazing to me. So it looks like the book series follows an interconnected series of steamy romances within the high-powered world of English Premier League soccer. Amazon has landed the rights to develop 3 films based on the 2 already released books, The Striker and The Defender, as well as the upcoming 3rd book, The Keeper, which will debut in October. The Gods of the Game films will be produced for Amazon MGM Studios by Premeditated Productions' Liz Pelletier and Cheryl Clark under the company's first look film and television deal with the studio, where Premeditated is currently adapting Fourth Wing, Dragon Cursed, and a stage set for Villains. That sounds very interesting. Steamy romance. I gotta send this to Fiona. I didn't really know that's what this was about, but I'll be saving this one for her. I'm sure she's gonna enjoy it coming hot off the heels of Heated Rivalry. This is definitely the Heated Rivalry effect. Less so Ted Lasso, more so Heated Rivalry effect. Yeah, 50 Shades of Kicks. The tame version of Shaolin Soccer. All good comparisons. But hey, that's all the quick hits I got for you all today. So I'm going to find that other graphic. There we go. Thanks for watching the news. Of course, that means that we're moving on to, I'm sure, your favorite part of the show. It is my favorite part of the show. That is, of course, we're getting into the DC time. We're getting into DCU Daily. So, as we always are, blessed from the breast. I don't mind breasts, but like blessed from the beginning is what I was trying to say. So let's get to James Gunn's talking about how we have been blessed from the beginning. And let's get into some DCU Daily.
It's another project that's been blessed from the beginning.
There's the shot right there. That.
Okay, we don't need to see
right there.
Hey, buddy. Eyes up here.
Now you want to get nuts?
Let's get nuts.
Here we go.
Victory mine. Ask me how am I doing? I'm telling you, really, I'm doing sublime. I never wait in a stewardess line. I just go do it. I'm moving my time. Really had nothing to do with it. How am I moving? I'm moving like you want to shine. Follow my lead. Don't listen to lies. I had to put me all in the line. That's why I know that victory's mine.
I prefer Jared Leto.
Hunka, hunka.
All right. Ooh, messed that up. Welcome on into another episode of DCU Daily. DCU Daily proper. Of course, we got to get into all the DC talk. We got to talk about James Gunn. Still not confirming whether we're actually going to get Maxima in this new Man of Tomorrow movie or not. We have a bunch of quick hits, some comic book news. Yes, it's DCU Daily time. Victory mine, DCU hope alive. Yeah, it's a matter of time. Yes, we are here finally. I didn't think I would make it to DC. You know what, Tony? You did. and it's time for DCU Daily. So I'm happy that you're still with us, and I apologize again because the technical glitches and issues. We went up pretty late today, but hopefully tomorrow we'll have an earlier start. Fingers crossed. But anyway, now that we are here talking about DC, of course we're gonna start off with the ducks, parrots, pelicans of DC news that we like to refer to as the quick hits. So with that, let's talk about the quick hits, shall we? The first thing I'm going to mention is something that Robert Pattinson was talking about. Of course, yesterday I mentioned that we now know that the production on this movie will begin around June of this month. They might be doing some second unit photography before then, maybe in as early as late April or early May. But then as far as, most actors filming, first unit photography is going to be starting in June. But today, I came across this article because Robert Pattinson has been, of course, doing a lot of promotion for the drama, the movie that's out now with Zendaya. And of course, he's also going to be in the Odyssey. So he's going to be doing a lot of promotional work. And as part of that, he did an interview with Vogue. And in that interview, he got asked about Batman. And he kind of went on a bit of a sidebar, and as part of that, he revealed why he thinks Batman is the most relevant and important superhero. I'm just gonna quickly skip to that part here and see if I can go through this. Because he said a lot of things, like, the video is right here. You can search this on Vogue. Robert Pattinson makes an old-fashioned and then just type that in and you'll find the video. But as far as what he thinks about Batman, this is what he had to say. Which, by the way, I agree with his assessment. But this is what Robert Pattinson said. Since I started doing the part of Batman, you look into the kind of legacy of it. There's something about that face that's a very deep and primal thing. It connects to people. It connects to children. It connects to adults. And then the legacy of the movies as well. I mean, they just got incredibly lucky with how this started and the filmmakers who were attracted to the characters. I mean, from Tim Burton to Sir President Christopher Nolan to Matt Reeves, Zack Snyder, everybody in between. And so Robert Pattinson was saying they've made so many really, really great Batman movies, and everybody wants to add to that legacy. No one wants to be the person who messes it up. And then, of course, Robert Pattinson then went on to compare landing the role of Batman to climbing Mount Everest. And he made it clear that while he initially didn't think it was possible, the role was one that he knew he already wanted. Of course, we've talked about how he spent a lot of time trying to get himself in front of Matt Reeves when he was initially working on a new Batman movie because he wanted that role really badly. And he trusts Matt Reeves implicitly, saying, I love him. I loved his Planet of the Apes movies. I love a lot of his movies. I think he's incredible at making blockbusters that don't feel like you're being shortchanged, that feel very interesting. All performances are really good. And of course, I feel like this next part, every time we talk about somebody who's playing Batman, they all mention this, right? It's like the suit. Once you put on the suit, people look at you differently. And Robert Pattinson very much has had the same experience. And he was saying the second you put that suit on, it's funny. People can't help but respond to you in a certain way. Even crew members see you turn up to work, and then when you put the suit on, everyone's a little more frightened of you. It's amazing. So, I mean, I guess, the suit gives you this sense of power, and this presence. And yeah, I remember the story that Tom Hardy likes to tell about when he was playing Bane, and he was like, I'm feeling pretty epic right now, and I'm like, I can take down anybody. And then there comes Christian Bale walking in his Batman suit, and I'm like, oh shit, that's Batman. It's like, oh, it's Batman. It's even Bane was a little bit scared of Batman. So, and rightfully so. Anyway, speaking of Batman, we go on from Robert Pattinson's Batman back to Ben Affleck's Batman. InArt Studio has just revealed official photos of their Ben Affleck BVS Batman 1/6 scale collectible figure, and pre-orders, of course, will be available in a few days. All you got to do is go to their website, inart.studio, and holy shit, they really got the look down, because that looks like almost a photo. I mean, the eyes are the only place where I'm like, it's a little off, but eyes are kind of hard to get down because humans are really good at perceiving, like what somebody's eyes look like, because we stare at people all day throughout our lives. But this is pretty epic. Like this figure, like 1/6 collectible figure, looks really good. I mean, that suit looks really accurate to the movie. The textures, the detail. The Ben Affleck look also very, very good. So yeah, more good Batman stuff. But hey, let's talk about Superman for a moment. I didn't want to put this in a separate what did James Gunn say, because there's not really a whole lot else to talk about. other than the Man of Tomorrow stuff we'll get into later. But James Gunn did get on Instagram and all of his socials today to announce that, well, they're getting a new Superman Experience Defenders Unite, launching at Warner Brothers Studios. So if you go on a tour of Warner Brothers Studios, you can sign up for this. It's going to be opening on April 18th, which is, of course, Superman Day. And you get to team up with Superman to protect the world. And, of course, this was made with a lot of love for Superman, as James Gunn was saying, and he hopes to see us there. The one thing I will say, though, those little things coming out of the portal very much feel like the Chitauri, except, you know, the Chitauri things like had like these metallic armors on them. It also looks a little bit like the Transformers big things in Dark of the Moon. So I was like, very much have seen this before. Apparently they're just space whales. But I'm like, it looks like you stole something right out of the first Avengers movie and the third Transformers movie. But okay, I mean, this looks fun. Crypto's there, so I guess if you go to Warner Brothers Studios, this will be a fun VR experience. I don't know. What do you guys think about this? It looks a little cheap. I mean, but it's not like this Disneyland, right? So you can only expect to get so much. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, we'll see. I mean, if any of you guys may make it out to this Superman experience on the West Coast, I think this is at the Warner Brothers Studios lot in Burbank. So, if you guys get to do the tour, do whatever this experience involves, then let us know, because we'd love to hear from you. But anyway, speaking of the DCU, the Suicide Squad's Joel Kinnaman, who of course is currently in For All Mankind, love that guy. I also liked his RoboCop movie. I hate the fact that they killed him off. Stupid Peacemaker. Why did you kill off Rick Flag Jr.? I'm never gonna get over that. Never gonna get over that. Damn it, James Gunn. But anyway, the Suicide Squad's Joel Kinnaman doesn't expect to return as Rick Flag after the Peacemaker Season 2 appearance, because he was recently asked about this, and, you know, he was like, look, you're probably not going to see me again. The question was, are you going to be back as Rick Flag Jr. in the DCU anytime soon? He's like, yeah. I would say no. Like, I'm not coming back. An alternate universe, mealy mouth Rick as me and James called him. Yeah. So looks like the last time we'll get to see him was Season 2 of Peacemaker. I mean, I was surprised that Joel Kinnaman was even in that, right? But I mean, while Joel Kinnaman says like he's friends with James Gunn, they talk every now and then. And in fact, James Gunn recently called Joel Kinnaman to ask about, you know, if he wanted to come in, and he was like, yeah, this is this little fun thing I'd love for you to do. And it was like, yeah, I'll come play with you anytime. So yeah, I mean, it looks like Joel Kinnaman, while he was back for Peacemaker Season 2, and he's always had a good collaboration with James Gunn. Yeah, he's not looking at any future appearances, at least not right now. So yeah, I guess we're all gonna continue to miss Rick Flag Jr. Maybe he can come back in like flashback sequences in Man of Tomorrow. You know, that'd be nice. You know what, Chuck Rod? That's the best part of that whole attraction. I would love to team up with Crypto in the Superman experience. Yeah. Peacemaker. What a joke. Yeah. Damn. I gotta say, like, James Cameron James Cameron does too, but like James Gunn has the ability to like really punch you in the heart with some of his writing, which is what makes him a great filmmaker. But I still will never forgive him for killing Rick Flag off. Like, damn it. God, why'd you have to do that? It felt so unnecessary, especially because then you kill Peacemaker, but you bring Peacemaker back. So, I mean, like, what's stopping you from bringing, I don't know, like, bring back Rick Flag? Like, somehow he's survived somewhere, and Amanda Waller's got him in some kind of, like, you know, miraculous surgery that saved his life. Like, you know, what happened with Phil Coulson, so they can get him back for the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show, in which he died, like, 3 times again. But anyway, I digress. Let's talk about some comic book news. So, you know how they're doing the Spider-Man, Superman crossover right now? It looks like they have some backup stories that they're doing as well, which includes Jeff Johns' Marvel return. For the first time in like a couple of decades, Jeff Johns is going to be writing one of those crossover stories that are going to be part of this larger Spider-Man, Superman crossover. So it looks like those crossover combinations will include, Jeff Johns' first Marvel story that's gonna have Mysterio taking on, you know, the Super and Spider families. You got Spider Noir encountering the Golden Age Superman. The symbiote hordes invade Metropolis as a new War of the Realms ignites. Jason Aaron and Russell Dodderman's epic reunion, which of course is going to feature Jane Foster's Mighty Thor meeting up with Wonder Woman and other characters. Then of course, you know, you got Hobgoblin, coming in as Hot and clashing with John Henry. It's gonna be interesting to see like how Hobgoblin plays into all of this. Amazing Spider-Man scribe Joe Kelly is going to be writing a story about Gwen Stacy and Lana Lang in a campus crossover. That sounds fun. It's going to be drawn by Humberto Ramos. And then of course Spider-Man, the Miles Morales Spider-Man, is going to team up with Superman in a tale by Miles' legendary co-creators Brian Michael Bendis, who recently made his grand return to Marvel, and Sarah Pichelli. So there we go. And then Ghost Spider and Supergirl are meeting up as well. So yeah, and then you got the masterful superhero storytellers Jeff Loeb and Jim Chung reuniting to put their own spin on a Spider-Man Superman team up. So they released some of these covers for that, all new, all spectacular. These all look fantastic, by the way. I like that one. I'm really excited to see what they do with Mighty Thor teaming up with Wonder Woman. That sounds like a dream team up. Of course, you know, Ghost Spider, and then you got Lana Lang, Supergirl there. She's not really Supergirl, is she? That looks interesting though. And then, well, Lana Lang right here, actually, that's Lana Lang and Supergirl crossing over. So yeah, the campus crossover sounds oh no, that's Gwen Stacy. I'm confusing my characters. Gwen Stacy and Lana Lang. Hobgoblin, yeah, that looks interesting. You know, crossing over with Steel, yeah, that looks interesting. Looks like a lot of fun. And then Miles Morales and Spider-Man, that's one I think a lot of people are going to be excited to see. I want to see that crossover. Definitely want to see that. Oh, look, there's a bulge. Okay, moving on. Spider Noir, speaking of, you know, timeliness, Spider Noir, he's going to have his own show, but you also get a special story here with Spider Noir in the crossover. Then, of course, you've got all these Spider-Man characters coming in. Is that the thing? Oh, wow, okay. And yeah, then you got some DC characters hitting it up with Marvel characters. Wow, okay, on both sides. Looks interesting. Wow. All right. Yeah. This is great. I mean, what a world we live in. You get all of these DC Marvel crossovers happening, and just I think that hopefully the start of a new golden age of comics. I mean, the absolute comics are killing it right now, but these crossovers are also something to look forward to. Who would you rather have just her team up with Thor? But I get it. Okay, yeah, no, I get it. I mean, Lady Thor and Wonder Woman is not the most obvious choice, but yeah, I mean, Hobgoblin in a live action movie, I feel like they're building up to that in the new Spider-Man trilogy, but it's still a while till we actually get it. Probably not in the next movie or even the one after it. Maybe they'll save that for like the third movie in this new trilogy, but we'll see. It's not like Enchantress is coming back anytime soon. That's true. That's true. Anyway, there's also another weird cross. This one I don't understand, but sure. There's a new Supergirl Blade Woman of Tomorrow, teaming up with the Daywalker to battle Mojo in a new crossover comic. John, was like, "What the f is this?" Like when he looked at this in the rundown, and he was like, "Blade and Supergirl." You okay? Come here. Georgie's talking to me right now. But it looks like if they've got a description for this new crossover saying when Mojo kidnaps Supergirl and Blade to star in his latest over-the-top vampires romance series, the Girl of Steel and the Daywalker find themselves trapped on a soundstage where the cameras never stop rolling and the stakes are very real, forced to battle blood-sucking foes, melodramatic tropes, and Mojo himself. The unlikely duo must team up and fight their way to freedom before the show's final twist becomes their last. Wow, actually, you know what? I'm sold on this. This is, by the way, is going to be seemingly exclusively for digital platforms. But yeah, that's great. That looks interesting. That description sounds like a great Twilight Zone episode, by the way. So I'm all in. I kind of like that. I mean, it's very weird, like Enterprising is saying, but it's that description is very intriguing. So I'm down. I would give it a shot. But you know what? This is the other thing I want to get into. Speaking of Supergirl, we mentioned this yesterday on the show that it is, according to Fandango's list, the ninth most anticipated movie for this year's summer films. So for summer 2026, the Fandango did a survey of 6,000 moviegoers and asked them, what are your 10 most anticipated movies? Supergirl came in on number 9, but DC Film News went ahead and put together this nice graphic we can look at. So I was kind of curious. I was like, if Supergirl is at number 9, what are the 8 movies ahead of it and the 1 movie behind it? So it looks like the Insidious sequel, which doesn't even have an official title yet, is sitting in at number 10, which surprises me that Insidious is that high. But then again, I shouldn't be surprised because the horror genre is so popular. But then, of course, Toy Story 5 being the most anticipated makes a lot of sense. Being more anticipated than Spider-Man Brand New Day, sure. But there we are. The Devil Wears Prada at number 3. I mean, that's huge. I mean, the trailers are coming out right now. And then the Odyssey at number 4. I don't think this list is reflective of how much money each movie is going to make, but certainly of the 6,000 people they, surveyed here, I guess it makes sense. At least, I mean, I would say these 10 movies make sense. Maybe not in that particular order, but of those 6,000 people, their 5th most anticipated movie is the upcoming Scary Movie that we're going to be getting. I like the Scary Movie trailer. I know John isn't a big fan of it, but I enjoyed that. And then, of course, the live-action Moana is number 6, which is catching some strays in the comments there. Then the Minions and Monsters movie sitting at number 7. That's the second animated movie on this list. And then number 8 is Mortal Kombat 2. Mortal Kombat 2 coming in ahead of Supergirl, actually. So there you go. But I mean, that's a good list. I mean, I feel like my list would be a little bit different, but I probably wouldn't put the Insidious sequel anywhere near my top 10, but that's just me. I mean, obviously when you talk to 6,000 people, you're going to get a lot of horror fans, so I'm not surprised to see that. But yeah, Supergirl coming at number 9. You got Toy Story ahead of it, Spider-Man, Devil Wears Prada, The Odyssey, those are obvious. Minions and Monsters, Mortal Kombat 2, Moana, and even the Scary Movie is ahead of it. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, it's on the list, which, again, I think one of you guys were pointing out that you're not the biggest fan right now of the marketing campaign for this movie. I feel like they've improved. Like, they're on the up with the marketing. They've definitely gone in a better direction than where they were a month ago. And I feel like something similar needs to happen for Lanterns now. And this is a good start. I mean, this is not really a marketing move per se, but it turns out, according to IMDb, we are now seeing that they have got an official composer attached to the show. So Grammy Award-winning composer Stephanie Economou, who of course is known for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, she is now set to officially serve as the composer of the new Lanterns show that's going to be part of the DCU, and it's going to air on HBO. So that's good news. A Grammy winner. I mean, look, the Grammys are also one of those awards where they do give it to a lot of people, and some people don't believe in the legitimacy of them. But it's good to know that you have somebody who's got experience and has done a lot of good work working as the composer for Lanterns. Anthony, hi man, how are you doing? Yeah, I know, no disclosure day in that top 10. I think is because when you talk about like general awareness, more people will discover Disclosure Day as the movie comes out, and I think the word of mouth on that is going to be strong. But it's not a big IP thing, Yeah, and then 6,000 people is not the biggest sample size for that top 10. So, but yeah, I mean, look, hopefully, they do a great job of this because Mick Giacchino did a great job with the Penguin soundtrack. Of course, his father, Michael Giacchino, did the movie. So he had, he's got some good genes and some great guidance from his own father. On this front, I mean, Stephanie kind of comes in and she has to kind of create the sound of the lanterns, maybe kind of come up with a musical motif, a theme for the lanterns, which hopefully can then carry over into Man of Tomorrow, where we know we're going to get to see, Aaron Pierre return as John Stewart Lantern. So that'll be interesting. Hey, Steven, how are you doing? Dan Lambo, come alive, man. I'm used to this. No one looks surprised because we used to do this. Awesome. Appreciate the lyrics. Grogu, gotta get people more excited than that. Yeah, that's another one that's missing from the top 10. No Star Wars, no Mandalorian and Grogu in that top 10. Definitely interesting to see that. I didn't even realize that wasn't on there. I was like, I feel like something is missing. Yeah. Yeah. Again, I mean, it's that top 10 list. Like I said, probably not reflective of like the movies that are gonna make the most money. But certainly when you talk about like people who are on Fandango, which usually means people who like going to the movies quite a bit, their top 10 includes Toy Story 5 and even the live action Moana over, Grogu, Mandalorian and Grogu. So yeah, I mean, but that movie's marketing has been pretty up and down, so I'm not entirely surprised that that's kind of where they sit. But yeah, all that could change. That's the whole idea behind good marketing. I mean, Superman Day this year, on April 18th, is going to be a big inflection point for hopefully Supergirl, which I think with the latest trailer and the featurette that they put out did a great job of kind of turning the narrative around. But now they're going to just keep building on it. And I feel like if they keep going in the right direction, Supergirl could make 500 million at the box office. I think that would be huge. Anything over 300 million, they'll be popping bottles. So speaking of course, we know the next movie after Supergirl that is focused on the Kryptonian, the House of L, is Man of Tomorrow. I mean, it's going to feature Superman, it's going to have Lex Luthor, and it's going to have a bunch of other characters, including, of course, the live-action debut at the movies for Brainiac. So let's talk about Man of Tomorrow, shall we? Yeah, by the way, MTG, I fully expect Star Wars to do a marketing blitz leading into the movie's release in May. It's just, I mean, they've been slowly picking things up. So yeah, thank you, Steven, for liking that video. John did an out of theater review of Super Mario Galaxy, and John loves his Super Mario, so I think that was a really good review. I think we're gonna do more of those. We used to do more out of theater reviews, and we kind of stopped, but I feel like it's a good thing to do, and especially when we're talking about a movie that's come out like that particular weekend, and you're going to see it. Why not talk about it? It's always fun, and John does a good job with those. Yes, CinemaCon, I mentioned it earlier in the show, Steven. We're going to be covering CinemaCon. There will be plenty of news. There's a high expectation that we'll probably get a trailer for Avengers Doomsday. And then, I don't think they're going to be showcasing the movie because I don't think they have the final cut ready. But you're probably going to see Avengers Doomsday have a, decent sized presence, and even Secret Wars have a decent sized presence, at this year's CinemaCon. So we'll see. We'll be talking about it. So anyway, let's talk about Man of Tomorrow, shall we? Of course, the whole Maxima casting saga continues, because yesterday on the show we talked about how James Gunn directly, disputed a Deadline article that was listing the names of Marissa Abela. Then there was also Ella Purnell and Adria Arjona as the three actresses who had been screen testing as the finalists on a short list for Maxima, which is the last character left to be cast for the Man of Tomorrow movie. And James Gunn was like, I love Adria Arjona, but I've never even met Marissa Abela. I've never met Ella Purnell. I love their work, but this is just wrong reporting. Now later in the day, Variety reported, and then Deadline also modified their reporting, adding Sydney Chandler, I think it was, Grayson Patton. Then you also had, of course, still Adria Arjona, and then Eva De Dominici were the four names that you see on the thumbnail for this show, for yesterday's show. Those are the four names apparently, screen testing since last week to play Maxima in the upcoming Man of Tomorrow. Yeah, I mean, I think the first trailer of Avengers Doomsday probably coming around CinemaCon time. But talking about Man of Tomorrow, the Hollywood Reporter also picked up on this, and they had similar reporting. In fact, they put this report out before Deadline and Variety, confirmed and corroborated it. And so I just want to kind of start off here, because the Hollywood Reporter not only talked about how Adria Arjona, Eva De Dominici, Sydney Chandler, and Grayson Patton are all currently the finalists for playing Maxima in James Gunn's upcoming movie. They also confirmed a few things that kind of flew under the radar here. I didn't mention this yesterday, but it's worth mentioning here. Of course, we know that Lois Lane is coming back. Rachel Brosnahan playing Lois Lane, Sarah Sampaio playing Miss Tessmacher. We're gonna see Skylar Gisondo playing Jimmy Olsen. We have, of course, Lex Luthor come. I mentioned Brainiac, obviously Superman, but Isabella Merced's Hawkgirl we knew was going to be returning. We also knew that Aaron Pierce, Jon Stewart Green Lantern was going to be in. That news broke a few weeks ago. But this article in the Hollywood Reporter also mentions that Guy Gardner's Green Lantern, played by Nathan Fillion, and Eddie Gategi's Mr. Terrific are also set to be featured in the movie. So that is the first time I've seen this mentioned anywhere. And given that the Hollywood Reporter, has been pretty good with their reporting so far, and James Gunn has not directly, basically debunked this or disputed this report, you got to believe that this is on the money. So guys and gals, we're going to get two Green Lanterns. in Man of Tomorrow. I mean, this feels like about as close to a Justice League movie at this point as anything. I mean, granted, probably most of these other metahumans will be making cameo-esque appearances, maybe even like slightly more than a cameo, but holy shit. So we're gonna get a Hawk Girl, we're gonna get 2 Lanterns, we're gonna get Mr. Terrific, we got Superman, we got Lex Luthor and Brainiac, and of course the rest of the Daily Planet gang, all in this upcoming Man of Tomorrow movie. Not to mention, it looks like we're gonna be getting Maxima if you go off of this reporting. So yeah, but you know what? James Gunn is trying to make us believe that that's not the case. And if you do believe him, then it's not actually Maxima that we're going to see. Now, of course, I mentioned all the names that we know are coming in and going to be featured in the Man of Tomorrow. But then James Gunn was asked on Threads whether, he's gonna be putting Maxima in the movie. Is he confirming Maxima is in the movie plus Brainiac? I mean, somebody asked, like, how are you not using Panic in the Sky as a big influence, which James Gunn has previously said that he isn't. That's not his big influence for this film, so he confirmed that. But on the question of, are you confirming that Maxima is in this movie, James Gunn replied saying, I am absolutely not confirming that Maxima is in this movie. So if you were to believe James Gunn, then it's not indeed Maxima that's going to be featured in the movie. So that begs the question. I mean, there is that one role that he mentioned is left to be cast in the film, and then he's done casting for Man of Tomorrow. If not Maxima, then who? Because that is the $1 million question right now. Like, what are we gonna get? I know Darkly Derek. I thought he was gonna die in there too. I guess that debunks my theory that Guy Gardner's Green Lantern is gonna die in Lantern. So I'll take that on the chin. Yeah. Not Dateline, Deadline. They were the first ones out the door with the story, and they kind of got their names wrong. But don't worry, there's probably a wrinkle in all of this, and we'll get into that in a minute. But Darkly Derek also saying, DC giving us 2 Green Lanterns, it's almost like they know what they're doing this time around. I appreciate the gander. Enterprising saying, Panic in the Sky has plenty of heroes in it. It was still a Superman comic. Yeah, I mean, but it's not the primary influence for this movie. But, obviously fans are still talking about that as potentially, something that James Gunn looked at. Yeah, I mean, Gunn knows what the fans want, but yeah. Yeah, so good point, Eric. James Gunn has said he's not confirming it. It doesn't mean that it's not true. Because, and so let's go down a few different pathways, right? Could it be Wonder Woman? Could it be Mercy? Could it be Indigo? Could it still be Maxima? And he's just not confirming it. Here's what I'm thinking is going on. And I'm going to say there's 2 different things that could be happening, right? On one side, James Gunn is saying, I'm not confirming it. I'm not confirming that it's Maxima for one really big reason. Whoever screen testing is obviously, by virtue of still screen testing, means that you're not hired for the job. You didn't get the role yet. Therefore, the contracts are not signed. And when you're like in a position where you're gonna be getting this like role, your agents are gonna want to negotiate on the contract and make sure you get paid what they think is a fair value for your services, and the studio also wants to obviously make it work with their budget. And so for legal reasons, they're not going to want to talk about it publicly until, all that work is done. Like, James Gunn knows that when he announces something, even if it's not a press release, it might as well be a press release. So it's official word when it comes from him, even if it's on his Threads account or Instagram or whatever. So I think James Gunn not confirming it's Maxima, allows them to continue in their casting process. And then B, it doesn't give the actor side any leverage saying, oh my God, look at all these news stories. Everybody's so excited that Audrey Arjona is playing Maxima. Wouldn't it be really bad for your movie's PR if all of a sudden we couldn't agree to a deal and Audrey Arjona exited the role? Wouldn't you want to pay us what we're asking for? So I think the negotiations of the deal is probably the reason why he's not confirming it. That is, of course, if it is indeed Maxima that's in the movie that they're casting. Now, the other side of this might be that it could be a Wonder Woman after all. Like, we might just get to the end of the movie, and kind of like at the end of Superman, we saw Supergirl make a cameo. We might be kind of looking at a similar situation that Wonder Woman, Diana Prince, maybe not in the Wonder Woman costume, maybe she just shows up in her street clothes, or maybe at a gala or a ball or something as Diana Prince. Maybe we get that. Adria Arjona, of course, is somebody that James Gunn has said could play a great Wonder Woman. I don't know if like some of the other actors that are, auditioning for this role would be great fits for that, but at least Adria Arjona would be, and we've talked about that before. So that could be it too. But I mean, if that's the case, then why would he confirm that it's Maxima if they are indeed casting Wonder Woman? Now, whether it's another member of the Authority, I don't think that's likely. I think while it's not confirmed, I'm pretty sure that the engineer is also coming back for this movie. Oh yeah, right there. So I mean, DC Film News kind of mentioning, yes. So we are going to be getting Maria Gabriela de Faria back in the movie as well, playing the engineer. But I don't think they're going to go into the Authority beyond that at this point. Yeah. So okay, now adding to all of this is of course our favorite Hollywood insider, the Jeff Snyder, the one that of course John loves to talk about all the damn time. So he recently on his newsletter, and I think he does a podcast, he was talking about this because of course over the course of the last 24 to 48 hours this has been a big topic of conversation. So in his latest newsletter, Jeff Snyder was saying that he has heard that the role is indeed Maxima. There are no tricks, like it is indeed Maxima. So I think my theory of they probably don't want to mess with the contract negotiations of whoever they end up hiring by publicly announcing it before it's actually done, which is why James Gunn is not confirming it just yet. So that's what Jeff Snyder is saying is most likely the case. It's indeed Maxima. There's no tricks about this. They're not trying to like fake us out. And he expects the character to have a pretty small role in the movie before becoming a bigger character in the inevitable third movie featuring Superman, whether it's a direct sequel or just the next Superman movie. That's of course Jeff Snyder talking about it. I mean, the other day I was kind of speculating whether Maxima would be a one-off, but considering some of the actors they have in mind, you'd gotta imagine they might be casting for more than just a singular, one-off appearance. So yeah, I mean, look, what about all the actresses, the two Ella Purnell and Marissa Abela, who Deadline initially reported on? Did Deadline completely get it wrong? Well, according to the comicbookmovie.com article, which is quoting Jeff Snyder, Snyder thinks that Deadline didn't just simply pull those other two names out of their ass. Like it wasn't just pure speculation. I mean, obviously, I don't think Deadline does that. There's a reason why Deadline has a reputation that it does, like the Hollywood Reporter, Variety, The Wrap. Like they don't just pull the stuff out of their ass. Like they're reliable sources of journalism. And so, I mean, of course, Jeff Snyder doesn't have any inside info on this, but he was speculating that, maybe James Gunn isn't only trying to cast Maxima, maybe he's also looking to cast, an actress to play Diana Prince, Wonder Woman. Maybe as a cameo in Man of Tomorrow, like I was mentioning, or a future project, because maybe that's where the Marissa Abela and Ella Purnell names came in. Because obviously the example that he used, which makes sense, James Gunn famously tested Nicholas Hoult out as Superman, before ultimately he cast him as Lex Luthor. Nicholas Hoult has talked about this himself while he was promoting Superman last year, and then Jeff Snyder was like, look, I can easily see him doing the same thing. You test out Adria Arjona for the role of Maxima, and then maybe, maybe you do Wonder Woman. She would make a great Wonder Woman. Obviously, James Gunn has mentioned that before. So, I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, look, Jeff Snyder did say that Gunn is going to introduce, according to him, or his estimation, Gunn is going to introduce Wonder Woman at the end of this movie, just like he introduced Supergirl at the end of Superman, which is literally exactly what I was saying like 5 minutes ago. But, I mean, do you think that James Gunn could be casting both roles at the same time? I still don't know like how well Ella Purnell or Marissa Abela will fit into either of the roles, and I don't know how closely the analogy of being considered for Superman and then getting the Lex Luthor role applies, because the Maxima role, one would imagine, is a significantly lower profile role than Wonder Woman, even though in a version of the comics Maxima ultimately ends up joining the Justice League and fights alongside Superman, after trying to seduce him to become his husband and the father of her kids and all that. I still think Wonder Woman would be a big upgrade, or being considered for Wonder Woman and then getting Maxima would feel like a bigger downgrade than if you were being considered for Superman and then you got the role as Lex Luthor, like the biggest Superman villain there is. So I don't know how well that applies, but I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, a lot of theories here. Jeff Snyder isn't somebody who's always on the mark. Remember, he famously predicted when we were down to 2 actors to play Damson Idris or Aaron Pierre to play Jon Stewart in the Lantern Show. He reported like, oh, exclusive, Damson Idris is getting the role. The day after we find out Aaron Pierre got the role, and I'm sure that kind of hurt Jeff Snyder's reputation a little bit. But yeah, I mean, look, I would love to see Wonder Woman as a cameo in Man of Tomorrow. They've got so many of the Super Friends already in the movie, and I find it hard to believe that Deadline would have completely made up 2 of the names. I feel like it's at least a partial truth that maybe Ella Purnell and Marissa Abella were considered, if not maybe in the final shortlist, maybe they were in there early on and then they were not in the final shortlist, and maybe that's where the misunderstanding happened. Or maybe it is true that James Gunn might be considering a casting for Wonder Woman. We know that Ana Naguera is working on a script for Wonder Woman right now, so it's obviously a priority at DC Studios. I mean, we don't think James Gunn is going to be directing that movie. We don't know who's going to direct that movie. But it wouldn't be surprising. They obviously introduced Supergirl before her own movie in the Superman film, and I think it was purposefully done so that we could get an idea of like what to expect from Supergirl, and it did a great job of that. So it wouldn't be unprecedented to see Wonder Woman, make an appearance at the end of Man of Tomorrow. I just don't know. I just don't know if that's true though, like if James Gunn is casting 2 roles at the same time. Like I would imagine they want to do a very thorough casting process for Wonder Woman, probably even more thorough than Maxima. And yeah, so I don't know if the logistics of that would quite line up. But dude, like enterprising, if I'm watching Man of Tomorrow and all of these heroes are showing up, yeah, it definitely makes me feel like watching, Justice League Unlimited. I'm probably gonna go watch a few episodes of that after the show now. Like, I love the intro. Like, it's just like the Justice League intro theme, but on electric guitar. It's like, it hits me in all the right spots. JLU had probably I was like, when Zack Snyder was doing a Justice League movie, I'm like, why aren't you using the Justice League animated intro? Like, the JLU intro is literally you, Junkie XL. Like, do it. But anyway, now that's that behind us, hopefully James Gunn will take inspiration from it and turn that into, part of the theme for the Justice League when we do get them. Yeah. I mean, I don't think James Gunn destroyed Jared Leto, did he? I don't remember that. I mean, and he also didn't call out Jeff Snyder by name, but he has said that some people, are just not very reliable. He never pointed out a specific person. I'm M2G saying these agents put I lost track of that. These agents put names out there to help their clients, and then James flies to Russia for an actress. I don't think any of the ones we mentioned are from Russia, are they? But JLU had JLU did have a great Wonder Woman, and it had a great theme. I love the Wonder Woman Batman, like this ongoing will they won't they situation that they had going on in that show for a while. Yeah. Great blasty ass drums. Right. Well, Junkie XL does a lot of those. Anyway, I mean, what do you guys think? Where do you guys land on all of this? Do you think that they are casting a Wonder Woman right now? Is James Gunn just playing coy with us? Because he did say that he's not confirming, Maxima is the one that they're casting for Man of Tomorrow. Like I said, it's most likely because they're still in the casting process. Therefore, all the legal contracts are not done yet. And like I mentioned, like it's gonna have to be a situation where if you don't have a contract signed and then, you announce it publicly that you cast whichever of those 4 actors, whether it's Sydney Chandler, Grace Van Patten, Eva DiDomenici, or Adria Arjona, if any of those 4 are the ones who are going to get the role, their agents could use any public acknowledgement of them being chosen for the role as leverage in their negotiations, because they could be like, all right, we're going to walk away from this. And that would have a bad, I mean, it's not like she's the lead of the movie, but I mean, you don't want that bad PR, and you could, so from a contract negotiation standpoint, it's entirely, reasonable to like not want to confirm that you are casting for Maxima until the role is officially cast. Or it might be that they don't even announce it officially until the movie comes out. But Yeah, I mean, it's either that or they are casting Wonder Woman, and it's not Maxima after all. But I guess we'll see. I'd love to hear from you guys in the chat, though. Where do you land on this? I mean, usually it's the whole Occam's razor thing. You know, the answer is probably really simple, and it's probably that, you know, the whole legal thing, the contracts thing. But there is an off chance, non-0% chance, that it could be that they're casting Wonder Woman instead of Maxima, or they're doing both. I wouldn't put it past James Gunn, but I also think it's pretty unlikely. All right. Okay, now the last thing I wanted to mention, this is a high note to end the show on. Speaking of James Gunn, who's currently working on prepping to go into production on Man of Tomorrow in a few months' time, in less than a few months' time. It turns out that he is going to be the commencement speaker at the 2026 spring commencement for his alma mater, St. Louis University. So he said that he was honored to be the commencement speaker at my alma mater, SLU. And yeah, if you are a student who goes to SLU and you get to be at this year's commencement, the spring 2026 commencement, you get to hear a whole speech from James Gunn. I bet you he's going to start it off by saying something like, you guys, this whole class, I just know you have just been, blessed from the beginning. And, I can't wait for you guys, whoever studied film. I'm out in Burbank and, come over. We got internships. They're always blessed from the beginning. We're doing great work, over at DC Studios. Thankfully we were blessed from the beginning. I'm just overplaying that joke. MTG saying, I remember all the names put out there to be Brainiac and Clayface, all wrong, and he went to get 2 unknowns. Yeah, that's true. That's true. It could be none of those actresses at the end of the day. Who knows? Although I have a feeling that though all those names can't be wrong. You know what I mean? Like, it's got to be one of them at this point. Enterprising saying, I think it will be Maxima overall. Wonder Woman is a big deal that requires a whole other screen test to get right, and the script isn't even done yet. Yeah, exactly. I mean, they might want to test the Wonder Woman actress with a Steve Trevor actor, if that's the direction they go in, right? So, like they did with Lois Lane and Superman. Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense, actually. Darkly Eric saying, who's been styling him since he took over DC? The fit is great. I'm sure he's got the cha-ching and the clank clank. Is that a money? I don't know. I'm sure he's got the moolah to pay a good stylist to work with him. Plus, he's got Jennifer Holland. I'm sure she gives him some good fashion advice and make sure he's always looking dapper. Yeah, he's gonna cuss a few times, hopefully. I can't wait for that speech. Many people will record that speech. It's gonna end up on the internet. And I'm sure we'll be talking about it. But yeah, Filmology, hi, you're still here. Thank you, man. And of course, hit the like button while you're here. Saying, I really do hope Gunn renews his contract. We need him. Way too soon for another leadership change. DC movies need stable leadership. Yeah, absolutely. We know that they got a 6-month extension. And so it looks like Peter Safran and James Gunn's contracts run out in 2027. They were going to run out, I think, at the end of this year, but they got an extension, so it runs towards the end of 2027. But that gives the new, leadership enough time to negotiate a new deal. Of course, Casey Blows at HBO also in a similar position. So yeah, we'll see how that works out. I think David Ellison intends to keep these people around. They're doing great work. They're obviously, DC and HBO are 2 of the prime corners of IP, cornerstones of IP, I should say, that they have at Warner Brothers. So like a lot of that $111 billion value that Paramount is paying for Warner Brothers derives from the value of DC and of course HBO. So I don't think David Ellison would be willing, and his company, leadership will be willing to let go of James Gunn and Peter Safran or Casey Bloys anytime soon. But we'll see. I mean, Clank are for the so Clank, cha-ching, moolah, back up the Brinks truck. Yeah, exactly. I'm sure James Gunn is gonna get a very hefty offer to stick around beyond 2027. Enterprising saying, I hope everything works out in the end, regardless of the merger. I want to see a successful DCU. Yeah, you know what? That's the attitude to have. That is the attitude you want to have, because at the end of the day, I think as fans, all we want to see is good movies, and we want to see a thriving landscape for the movies. We want to see a Hollywood that's providing great opportunities for not just the filmmakers that already, are having a lot of success, but it's opening the doors to new filmmakers to tell bold new stories. And I think with with DC Studios and the DCU, James Gunn has certainly, done a great job with bringing in some lesser to maybe even unknown names, whether they're behind the camera, like Ana Nogueira writing the script for Supergirl. We'll find out how good that is. And then Wonder Woman and Teen Titans. And then, of course, in front of the camera, Millie Alcock is still pretty early in her career. Lars Eidinger is not a very, well-known household name. So he's put a lot of, people who have worked really hard in their careers in the biggest roles of their lives, whether in front of or behind the camera. And so I think that's the kind of attitude you want to see from the new Paramount Warner Brothers leadership. They want to give new filmmakers opportunities as much as, filmmakers, who are very experienced and some of the biggest names in the business. So, and I think James Gunn is obviously a part of all of that too. But yeah, I think the politics stuff with regard to Paramount Warner Brothers is overblown. Certainly on the movie side of things is very overblown, and I've gone through the many reasons why. I think it's a situation where the Ellisons swing the way of the times, and so they're doing what they can right now to stay in favor of the government, who they need to be in favor with in order for this merger to get through all the regulatory processes. After that, I mean, I don't think they're going to become what or anything like that. If you just ask the industry insiders, they're not as worried about that either. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, this time next year, we could be speaking, singing a very different tune. Filmology is saying, is it possible Clayface is another Joker when it comes to box office? Not at that level, but it ends up being a hit. I mentioned this before. I mean, Filmology, you're right on the money. I feel like there's a non-zero chance. It's unlikely, even for Joker, you would have never predicted it, that Clayface could become a Joker-esque billion-dollar hit. Is it very likely to happen? No. Is it even, somewhat unlikely to happen? Yeah, it's very unlikely, but there is a non-zero chance. I would say right now, having not seen the trailer for the movie, DC Studios probably expects the movie to make anywhere between $100 to $200 million. That's a really low estimate, but I mean, they don't even have a final cut for the movie. We don't have any trailers. We don't know what the marketing campaign is going to be like, but there is a chance. Like if you have somebody, I mean, but like, here's the thing. If you have a great performance, a great marketing campaign, and the good word of mouth, and then the movie's great, there's a chance. There's a chance. I mean, the only thing that I would say that's working against it is like you don't have somebody the caliber or the experience, at least, level of Joaquin Phoenix in the lead role. Nothing against Tom Rhys Harris, but he's not a Joaquin Phoenix, doesn't mean he can't do as good of a job. Nobody thought that Heath Ledger would be able to play the most iconic Joker of all time. So, an Oscar-winning Joker, and one of two now. So, it's possible. I just don't think it's very likely, but it's possible. Wouldn't we love to see that? That of all the movies that make $1 billion in the new DCU, the first one is Clayface. That would be amazing. I think we'd all love for that to happen. Hello, Hosea. How are you doing, man? Hope you're doing well, and of course, we'd love to see you here. We're done with most of the show, but Be Kind and Rewind. I mean, we've been live for almost 3 hours at this point, but thank you for tuning in. We'd love to see you here. And hit the like button. Definitely appreciate that. Dark Lead Eric saying, bro makes amazing movies on the cheap using a broader spectrum of DC characters than we've ever seen used on the silver screen. I'm sure you're talking about James Gunn. Eric saying they make money on paper. They're received well. Let's effing go. Yeah. Yep. That's the combination, man. That's the thing. James Gunn loves the comics. He's as much of a nerd as any of us, and he's giving us a broad, spectrum of characters, like you said. He's not just focusing on the big three and then the few, other ones that we are well known, like the Justice League characters. You're getting a nice mix of unknowns and known characters, and projects that in a lot of other regimes would have just been set aside because they're like, there's no commercial value here. But looking at how the MCU built out the most successful franchise in the history of Hollywood, mostly based on characters that wouldn't even qualify as the most popular Marvel characters, not just back then, but even now, like Spider-Man, X-Men, Fantastic Four are like the lifeblood of Marvel. They, Wolverine is like, those are the characters that everybody knows about Marvel. But, all of a sudden you got an Avengers movie that made $1 billion plus, $1.5 billion, $1.5 billion. And it featured Iron Man, Thor. I mean, Thor and Hulk were recognizable, but like, Black Widow. Iron Man was not even an A-lister until Robert Downey Jr. Made that franchise a success. And then of course you have Captain America. So it's very possible. I mean, the MCU definitely has shown us that you can make a great Ant-Man movie and people will go see it. Or a Guardians of the Galaxy movie and people will go see it. James Gunn did that, remember? So I think he's got some experience doing this. And so I love that he's applying that same philosophy to the DCU. Yeah. I mean, look, the Clayface movie was written by Mike Flanagan. You're right, enterprising. So yeah, the marketing for the Joker was amazing. It also kind of like caught fire. Like it was a cultural zeitgeist moment, like in a way that the second Joker never quite was able to do. So a lot has to go right for Clayface to get anywhere near that. But I mean, there's a non-zero chance, that's what I like to say. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they market it. And I don't think we will get a first trailer for that until probably around Supergirl time. There's a chance they might show something from it at CinemaCon, maybe. But I mean, I'd be really surprised if they showed the whole movie. You're more likely to see a full screening of Supergirl at CinemaCon than Clayface. But I'd love to see what they do announce about Clayface. We'll be following it later this month. Yeah. Filmology is saying, good point. To be honest, my excitement has shifted more in favor of Clayface because of that. Yeah, it's Mike Flanagan. He doesn't really miss much. Yeah, exactly. Filmology also saying, also, Dan, don't you find it interesting how Supergirl and Clayface are the follow-up to Superman? I'm not opposed to it, but I do wonder how an executive feels about it, knowing that they may not make as much. Yeah, I mean, it's a risk. It's a big risk. We have talked about it many a times. Clayface and Supergirl, I think James Gunn has admitted it himself. He didn't think that those would be the next two movies after Superman. It just happens to have worked out that way because his philosophy is, you got a great script, we will give you the green light, and they've packaged them well, both of those projects. They've attached some great actors, great talent behind the camera, in front of the camera. Great scripts, obviously, are the basis of it all. But yeah, I mean, James Gunn didn't think that would be those would be the two movies that would follow up Superman, but here we are. Obviously, the Batman movie, I think he probably thought would be much further along than it is, but they're still working on it because they want to get the script right before they get to the casting and everything else that needs to happen. Same thing with Wonder Woman. So, yeah, I mean, it is interesting. I mean, it is risky. I guess, come back this time next year and we'll be taking a look at, the how all of that played out. And it will be very interesting to see how it does all play out. Yeah. But I mean, the fact that he's greenlit them, he definitely felt strongly about them both. So yeah, good point there. A great teaser for Clayface will definitely help. I think it would be very interesting to see the direction that they take the marketing, because like the very first trailer for Joker set the tone in a way that became iconic. And I think then the follow through on that was really, really good. Like Warner Brothers marketing has been on one hell of a run recently with what they did with F1, with Superman. I mean, and obviously I think it's a little weird that Supergirl hasn't quite hit those highs yet. But I mean, maybe they were just too focused on, pushing Sinners and One Battle After Another for the award season. So, but clearly now they're, pivoting towards Supergirl. And I think that the trailer that just came out is a great example of, the marketing picking up for Supergirl. So I would hope that Clayface would get a similar upgrade as we get closer to the movie coming out. Yeah, I mean, they have to nail the marketing to get people interested. That's the thing about Supergirl and Lanterns, like I mentioned, that wasn't helping its case. But I feel like they're turning things around. Supergirl for sure. Lanterns, we have yet to see much more, but I wouldn't be surprised, if the Lanterns next trailer answers a lot of the questions and criticisms that we have talked about for weeks now for the previous trailer. Yeah. Yeah, I've seen the TikTok stuff about Robert Pattinson's Batman being in the DCU recently. I think a lot of that has to do with April Fool's Day. There were a lot of people posting April Fool's jokes like, oh, Robert Pattinson Batman is in the DCU. It's happening. It's confirmed. And I feel like some people just took that way too seriously. If it's anything other than that, then I've got news for you. James Gunn has made it pretty clear. He said it. It's not happening. Matt Reeves has said it. I mean, what will it take for us to believe that Robert Pattinson's Batman is not the DCU Batman? I guess the only thing that will really confirm is when they do cast the DCU Batman. But it looks like that's not for a while yet. So until then, we'll just wait to see what Supergirl looks like, Clayface, Lanterns. Of course, CinemaCon is coming up, so we'll get lots of news and updates, and hopefully, I'm guessing, this is just a hunch, that Supergirl, they will screen at least a version of Supergirl at CinemaCon, even if it's not the exact final cut. I mean, given how close it is to the release of the movie, that to me feels like the one they could showcase. If not that, then Mortal Kombat 2, I bet you they do showcase that. So, and then DC will probably have a significant presence. We'll be covering it all. And then, speaking of, we have the Fancast Friday poll up for you guys right now on the channel. Definitely go ahead and check that out. I'm just going to do a quick tally of where the poll stands. It looks like 49% of the vote is currently going to Teen Titans director. So, Ana Negreira's working on that script. So that's what you guys seem to want to do for Fancast Friday tomorrow. It's pretty much wiping the floor with every other option. Kit Kat Heist Bandits only getting 18% of the vote. Amazon Prime Bond getting 16% of the vote. And then Henry Cavill's next franchise also getting 16% of the vote. If you haven't voted for Fancast Friday, just go to the community post section on YouTube and you see the poll there. There's a couple of posts down. But vote for that. Tomorrow we'll be live with DCU Daily, and then after that we'll be live with Fancast Friday. John will be back as well. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see, what we end up doing for Fancast Friday. I have a pretty good feeling it's going to end up being, of course, DCU Teen Titans director, which there's a few good names I can think of. Filmology is saying, I think the total box office of DC in 2026 will be weaker, obviously compared to Marvel, but 2027 will have the big guns. Marvel is fortunate enough to have big hitters this year, and I'm sure it'll be great. Yeah, I mean, look, it's not a zero-sum game, and obviously I think, when you compare Avengers Doomsday and Spider-Man Brand New Day to Supergirl and Clayface, it's definitely weighed heavily in favor of Marvel in terms of where the box office potential stands. And even next year, Secret Wars, is going to be a big hit, potentially a $2 billion movie. But you know what? Man of Tomorrow and the Batman Part 2 could both make $1 billion a piece. So it will be very, very competitive. And you know what? The rising tide raises all ships. So hopefully, we'll get to see all of these movies succeed and do well, because that helps, Marvel and DC and every other comic book story that's being told. I think, Eric, if I had to make a bet, I think it's more likely we get the first 10 to 30 minutes of the movie, Supergirl, being shown at CinemaCon than the entire movie, because I don't think they're quite have the full cut of the movie locked in yet. And despite the fact that it's a trade show, it's not like people are signing NDAs, so if they screen the whole movie, that information will get out. And if they're still making changes to the movie, then people will know what was changed between what they showed at CinemaCon and the movie itself, and it releases this summer. So I mean, unless things have changed and they've locked down the final cut of the movie, which April to June is plenty of time for them to make changes. So I think the first 30 minutes is more likely. I would be surprised, but I wouldn't mind seeing the whole thing. I think it was really good. They should show Supergirl. They should, but I mean, again, I don't think it's ready yet. All right, so Tony's calling it a night. Enterprising is saying, victory mine, keeping DC alive, luck on our side. Wow, we're really getting into the rhyming stuff. Yeah, we'll cover all of the CinemaCon stuff. Definitely stick around. We'll be talking all about it. Yeah, it's gonna be a fun week of CinemaCon news. But like I said, tomorrow we'll be back and we'll be covering all the DC news, the usual DCU Daily, and then we'll have Fancast Friday. Go vote for the Fancast Friday poll if you haven't. Until then, as Enterprising was saying, later fam, and as James Gunn would tell you, stay blessed from the beginning, especially for his SLU commencement speech coming up this spring of 2026.
It's another project that's been blessed from the beginning.
There's the shot right there. That.
Okay, we don't need to see
right there.
Hey, buddy. Eyes up here.
Now you want to get nuts?
Let's get nuts. Here we go.
Victory mine. Ask me how am I doing? I'm telling you, really, I'm doing sublime. I never wait in a stewardess line. I just go do it. I'm moving my time. Really had nothing to do with it. How am I moving? I'm moving like you want to shine. Follow my lead. Don't listen to lies. I had to put me all on the line. That's why I know that victory's mine.
I prefer Jared Leto.
Hunka hunka.
And of course, as John would like to tell you, don't forget to kiss Jeff Snyder and hug Tom King.